And to that piece of lieutenant that's always on his podcast, bashing us, him.
Roll call.
That's right. Good morning, everybody. 8:05 live Eastern time. Of course, it's Friday morning. It's your round table. Good morning, John. Good morning, Marlon. Finest Unfiltered. This is a rough week for New York City. That's absolutely tragic. We have a 7-month-old baby that was shot dead in New York City. Absolutely tragic. Disgusting. We're going to jump into that. We're going to talk about that, of course. Corruption that's going on in New York City and the NYPD. And then we have just total disrespect to the law enforcement profession. And my heart goes out to the wife of Jonathan Diller. Just absolutely that she has to deal with just total disrespect to the honor that the men and women do on the streets every day. And she has to endure disrespect to her husband's life. It's absolutely ridiculous. But that's okay. We're with you. We stand with you. It's just, it's insane. It really is. It's insane. And I said it last episode, and I said it before, that I constantly keep saying it, that it's come to the point that people in New York City and even throughout this country look at cops as total peasants, and they don't see cops as humans and realize there's a woman here who's the wife of an honorable man who served in the streets of New York City, who has a baby, who has to go on without her husband, not just a cop, her husband. For her, he's her life. You know, it's for everyone else, he's a cop. For her, this is her husband. And cops are human too, and people forget that. So good morning, everybody. Let's jump right into it. John, absolutely disgusting. I'm sorry. I'm just aggravated by this case, aggravated by a 7-month-old baby. Let's jump into it.
Yeah, man. It's like I don't even know what to say, honestly, because this is the result of a lot of things. This is the result of we're getting to a point where there's going to be an open shut murder investigation, and the guy's just going to walk because society has just been that dumbed down. So Jonathan Diller's murderer, number one, he shouldn't have been out on the streets that day. So Jonathan Diller shouldn't have got killed. There so many things that went wrong that led up to him being murdered. So many things, and it would be easy for us to sit here and just point fingers. Oh, it's Melinda Katz's fault because she didn't get the prosecution. It's the juror's fault because he didn't do that. It's Shell and Kaz's fault because they put young kids out there untrained, unsupervised with supervisors that really didn't even belong on the job, never mind supervising people. We could point the blame at all of them, but honestly, I blame all of us, dude. I really do. I put the blame solely on myself. I put it on everybody else too. I wasn't his sergeant that day. I wasn't his lieutenant that day. I wasn't his captain that day. I wasn't his partner that day. I didn't pass those laws. I didn't put bail reform out there. I didn't put discovery reform out there. I wasn't pushing for all this criminal reform. I didn't think the CRT was a good idea. I didn't do any of that stuff, but I still blame myself and I blame everybody else because, we just weren't loud enough, and this is what it is now, man. We have such a dumbed down society in the matters of law, in the matters of civics, and they can't comprehend reality, bro. Reality is behind the screen. It's behind this phone. It's behind that screen. It's not, no one's putting themselves in Diller's shoes. No one's putting their wife in his wife's shoes. No one's putting themselves in anybody's shoes. We're just making these horrible decisions based off, oh, what I think. It's like, just think of the insanity of this. Diller's murderer was found guilty of attempted murder, but not murder. He was found guilty of manslaughter, almost like what he did was reckless. It wasn't his fault that he pointed the gun at a cop who was trying to stop him and pulled the trigger. How do you get found guilty of attempted murder and not murder when you actually pulled the trigger and murdered someone? How does that even happen? It could only happen in a dumbed down version of society that can't differentiate reality from what some defense attorney's spinning. I don't blame Melissa Katz at all. This was an open and shut case, man. I don't blame the Queen's DA's office. I don't even blame the juror, bro. I blame us. I really do. I really do. I think we're so dumb. We're so stupid. We get hooked on what the police commission is saying. This is a gut punch. And all these idiots are reposting it. Yeah. So why do you stand up there with Kathy Hochul? Why do you stand up with there someone who fought and defended bail reform forever? Why were you pushing for Andrew Cuomo? What are you sitting up there with people working for people like Zohran Mondani? It's a gut punch. This city's been getting gut punched every day. I'm honestly like, I'm shocked that it even went this far. Like, we're gonna get to the point where people are just gonna walk. They're gonna murder people in broad daylight. They're gonna murder cops in broad daylight. They're gonna be 100% guilty, and you're gonna have some moron jurist that come up there that has a third grade education at 30 years old that we take care of with our tax dollars, and they're gonna say, you know what, I just don't like cops, so I'm gonna find them not guilty, and they're gonna get a murderer to walk. It's all our fault.
Yeah, good morning, guys. Good morning, chat. Hope everyone had a good week. It doesn't really surprise me at all, and I'm also gonna have to push back on that, John. I'm gonna say that the thing is, where we've been in a system that's like, it's larger than all of us, and in a lot of ways that system was there before we were even born on Earth. And I think what we're seeing now going on in society is all of that coming to a head, and it's going to get a lot worse, I believe. Okay, and I'll talk about it as we go on, but there's been further examples where you're seeing cops getting indicted for you're seeing cops getting indicted for on-duty action that I see no problem with, in them trying to defend themselves. And I think this is all part of it too. What we're seeing here is society kind of breaking down, and I think there are people in it that are using cops as scapegoats, and they're pushing all of society's. They're trying to distract. They're doing both. They're pushing all the problems of society onto police and law enforcement, and they're trying to distract us from all what's happening, but in real time. And this is another example of it. And those jurors, I don't know what was going on there, but you have to keep in mind that they're a product of the areas that they live in, and I think things are going to get a lot worse before they get a lot better. And I'll tell you why as we go on further on. I'm sorry about that, Diecast. Yeah, can you hear me now? Yeah. I'll bring up further examples to tell you why I think those things are going to get worse. Because again, those municipalities that are looking to charge cops, and what happened in New York, they all have certain things in common, and those certain things are that they're essentially failed cities and failed municipalities. And again, things are getting worse financially, and infrastructure wise, and so on and so forth in those areas.
I just want to say to Stephanie Diller, the wife of posthumously honored Detective Jonathan Diller, and to her son Ryan, we love you, we care about you, and at the Finest Unfiltered, we want to fight for you. And I think that's what John is saying, right? John is saying that we want to fight harder so that this doesn't happen to another family, and that you don't have to endure this type of pain, that your son's life mattered. It's absolutely ridiculous. I want you to just focus in and understand when John just mentioned the crimes that he was actually convicted of. I want you to think about this. In essence, what I got out of it is that he was acquitted of murder. Think about that. Because if manslaughter wasn't on the table, That's what he was actually, just think about that, right? To our friends and listeners. He was found guilty of aggravated manslaughter and attempted murder. So if he was not found guilty of those two charges and just acquitted for actual murder, he'd be walking today. He would be walking the streets. I mean, I just think about this. And that's what I take out of it. Not that they just dropped down to a lower charge. He was, in essence, acquitted of murder. 12 people in New York City. 12 people. You have to ask all these people, whether it's one person or not. 11 people couldn't convince someone else that this is murder. Just think about that. We have, and that's why I said people no longer think of cops as human. And, you know, for some kids, cops are superheroes. But on the flip side, we have people that look at cops as they're peasants. Their lives don't matter. How could this savage cretin not be found guilty of murder? He's acquitted. I want you to think about that. In essence, if those other charges were not on the table, he would be not guilty. He was acquitted of murder, and he was charged with aggravated manslaughter. Understand what manslaughter is. This is insane. And he was charged attempted murder. That means that he made an attempt to kill him. He didn't intend to kill him. He didn't actually kill him. That's what they're saying. What the jury is saying, in layman's terms, is that this savage cretin, and I don't even want to use his names because that's what he is. He's a savage cretin. Did not kill Jonathan Diller. Think about that. It's absolutely insane. And again, to Stephanie, we love you. To Jonathan Diller's son, Ryan, we love you too. It's just absolutely, it's heartbreaking that we've gotten to this point. And yes, it will get worse. It has gotten worse. The scary thing is, how much worse can it get? How much worse can it get that we're in a society right now that we can't find someone guilty of killing a cop while taking police action? Because what else happened there? Do we actually need a jury for that? The jury should have went in there and said, and already had in their minds, this guy is guilty. All you need to know, he shot a police officer doing his job. What is that? How did we get to the point that that's aggravated manslaughter? And you know what? What that is doing is setting a precedent that eventually a cop could get killed, and the savage cretin that shoots a cop and causes their demise could walk the streets of New York City. Keep that in mind.
Look, everybody's outraged, but who's really going to talk about the real issues? Everybody's outraged, but what are you guys doing? What's going to change? I still can't get over it. I was at the polls in Dungan Hills, and I'm watching women walk in with murdered cops t-shirts on, going to vote for Cuomo. I'm like, this is the guy, this is the reason that killer was out on the street that day, was because of Andrew Cuomo. The reason. But, he's better than Zohran Mamdani, though. And I'm like, is this where we're at in society? Is this where we're at in society? Where you have someone wearing the shirt of a murdered cop going to vote for someone who lets out cop killers? Going to vote for someone who leaves violent offenders out on New York City streets. You have unions cozying up with him and Kathy Hochul and the rest of them. These people should get spit in their face. Should be no, and that's why I say, Marlon, like I'm not like kidding at all. I blame myself. I blame everybody else. Yeah, I trained them. No, I didn't, but I did. It's all of us. It's us as a society that is failing. So outraged for what? What are you doing about it? The unions are outraged about what? What are you changing? You're aligning yourself with these politicians. You're letting this narrative get painted in the world, and you're afraid to tell the truth around situations because you're more worried about your financial status than you are about going into heaven or anything else in this world. Your kids' future, your grandkids' future, you're more worried about the almighty dollar than you are about the world you're going to leave them with. Meanwhile, all the money you make in the world is all going to get devalued anyway. Inflation's going to kill all of it. It's going to kill all of it. Your kids are going to have to fend for themselves. Your kids are going to have to be people that could stand on their own right. Your legacy should be a legacy that where you stepped, you left that place a better place. And we're not, dude. We are failed. Every single one of us. Our generation is the weakest generation this country has ever seen. We are leaving the world in a worse place for the next generation than the world that was given to us. We failed. Jonathan Diller is dead because of every single one of us. These disgusting police unions, the cowardice of all of us, the way we're afraid to speak to our elected representatives. Do you understand that? They're not your leader. They're not your mayor. They work for you. Your PBA president, SBA president, DEA president, they work for you. You shouldn't feel timid to walk up. You're a detective to tell Scott Monroe what you got to say about him. He works for you. Your trustee, who the hell are they? They you, bro. They're the ones, they get more money to represent you, and this is the type of representation you're getting. But, oh, yeah, we're outraged. Oh, and the police commissioner said something real tough that I didn't think was that tough, by the way. She said something real tough, so let's cheer it on, and let's move on, and let's just keep all going down the same path. You know, I said it before on here, and it's something that sits with me, and maybe it's why I'm a little jerked up in life. But Dostoevsky once said, you're responsible for everything you do and everything everybody else does. And it is so true, it's not even funny, right? We again, you guys weren't his sergeants, you weren't his lieutenants, you weren't his captain, you weren't the chief of department, you weren't the police commissioner, you didn't train them, you weren't there in the car that day, you didn't pass these laws, you didn't vote in these politicians, you voted for other politicians, but we're still responsible for it. Doesn't alleviate us. We failed Jonathan Diller. We're failing every cop and every member of society. We're failing every little baby that was born today. We failed the 7-month-old kid that got shot. It's on all of us, dude. But we just think we're alleviated from it. No, I'm just gonna point the fingers at the fifth drawer. I'm just gonna point the finger at Melissa Katz. I'm just gonna point the finger at Kaz Daughtry. I'm just gonna point the finger at Andrew Cuomo, John Schell. No, it's all of us, dude. Because guess what? If you didn't go along with all of it, and going along with it means sitting in silence and putting your head down and just collecting the next check and not worrying about it. If we didn't do this, none of this happens. None of this happens. Is bail reform changing? Is there going to be less repeat violent offenders on the street because of what Jessica Tisch said? No. Did we repeal discovery reform and we're gonna have more people actually be prosecuted? No. Are we going to stop shutting Rikers down and trying to eliminate the population of Rikers by 3/4 and letting more violent offenders out on our streets? We need to do better to have less prisoners in jail. Are we doing any of that? No, we're doing exactly more of it. You're getting more bail reform. You're getting more discovery reform. You're getting more repeat violent offenders on New York City streets. Oh, and you know what else you're getting? You're getting more bullshit crime numbers on top of it. Oh, yeah, we made history. We did this. We did that. You did nothing. Crime is worse than it's ever been, and everyone wants to pretend like it's not. Since 2019, violent crime in New York City is up 44%. Since 2019, felony assault's up 44%. Violent crime is up 30% since 2019. And you're going to let this woman, the day after a 7-month-old baby was shot, get up at a press conference with this 34-year-old Nepo baby loser and tell you how they've made history in crime numbers. Even if it was true, and it's not true by any stretch of the imagination. Even if it's true, it's absolutely disgusting that they had the audacity to get up there, pat themselves on the back, and celebrate. You had a cop killer basically get off. At some point, this guy's going to be out on New York City streets. Guess what? And you know what? You're going to be paying for him still. We're paying for him right now. We're paying for him in jail. We're going to pay for him to get out. Maybe he's going to get a college degree because of us. Maybe he's going to come out and be a professor. Maybe in 30 years, He's going to be the next deputy commissioner of Rikers Island. He's going to be the next guy in charge of Rikers Island when we could only hold 4 people, and the only people we keep.
Maybe he'll be a violence interrupter.
Oh, well, he's 100%. He's perfect fit for violence interruption. He's a perfect fit for it.
Oh, absolutely.
And they're the ones keeping shooting down. They're the ones keeping you safe, not the police department. Dude, it's like, I get what you're saying, Marlon, and I agree. I agree totally with you. But I also, it's all our fault. It's 100% our fault. It's so hard to even talk about that. It's like, it enrages me, dude. It really does. It enrages me because I got a lot more to say, and I'm not going to say on things on here out of respect for his wife. But because I've said enough, and it's the truth. We don't tell the truth. There were numerous failures that happened that day and prior to Jonathan Diller ever even coming on that job, but especially when he was on that job, that caused his death on top of all the fucking legislation. So I'm shocked that the guy even got found guilty of what he got found guilty for. I'll be honest with you, because we're getting to a point where people are just going to walk, bro. And that's it. That's the way we've done. You think it doesn't have a cost when you're letting kids out of high school that can't read and can't write and can't do basic math? You think this doesn't have a cost in society? Oh, no, I don't care. I live in Long Island. Oh, I don't care. I live in Rockland. Oh, I don't care. I live in Staten Island. Oh, I don't care. I'm going to move out of here. I don't care. I don't care. I don't care. I don't care. It's not me. 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 I send my kids to Catholic school. I send my kids to private school. You think none of this matters? There's no responsibility. The new chancellor of public schools, New York City public schools, he's sending his son to an elite private school. You think that doesn't matter? You think it doesn't matter when all the cops don't live where they work? You think it doesn't matter when all the teachers don't send their kids to the same schools they teach in? Think these things don't have an effect on society? Think it doesn't matter? Think it doesn't matter, the little poor black kid that has no opportunity, that can't read, comes out of school with no math, and we push them through the system because, hey, we couldn't suspend them. We couldn't hold them accountable. We couldn't actually show them love, because that would be racist. We can't actually hold him accountable for any of his actions. And then he murders a cop. And it's like, oh, yeah, it was such a tragedy. Really?
Yeah. There's a lot said there. Where do I start? Yeah, you know what? I'm have to push back. I don't think it's our generation that's the weakest generation. I think where again a system was in place long before we were born, and that system had a lifespan on it. And I think unfortunately, the baby boomers, and I'm gonna put you on the spot, baby boomers, the baby boomers, right? Were given the keys to the kingdom decades ago, right? When America came out of World War II and we dominated the world. We dominated the world with culture, with, stuff we built. In a lot of ways, much of the world after post-World War II was built by America or American talent in some way, some form or the other, And unfortunately, that system had a lifespan because instead of nurturing the system and protecting the system, the people who ran the system took advantage of it, right? And they did things based off greed and self-interest rather than the interest of the country at large. For instance, right? I've said this before, how they shipped jobs away across the world, to places where it became cheaper, like China, right? And then the negative consequences of that are that in inner cities where you used to have jobs, low-skilled jobs and factory labor, you no longer have those. So what does that do? Well, that helps for the breakdown of families, and joblessness when it comes to urban communities and in a lot of ways Black and brown communities, but also in rural communities too, because if you travel America and you go to a lot of these rural cities, you'll notice it's like a lot of towns that time is forgotten, and a lot of people who still remain there are on they're on drugs, they're alcoholic. It's two different locations, but the same problem and the same level of poverty and despair. Okay, and so how do we relate that to this now? Well, you see, the system is, in my opinion, is reached its end, And you see that in the level of debt that the country now has. And that debt is now reflected in cities who are now bankrupt, okay? Or they're near bankruptcy. It's happening to us. It's happening to Boston, LA, San Francisco. You pick a big city in this country, and they're all near bankruptcy. They all have massive budget gaps that they cannot fill on their own without state help or without federal help. And the federal government itself is in nearly $40 trillion of debt. So you see, there are lots of problems in these places, right? And those problems are about to hit the people themselves. There was only so long government could delay it and could ignore the problems. But the problems are becoming visible in places like New York when somebody put up a video a couple of days ago of the Bronx where like you see the street, you can see the rebar in the street now, and we talked about this before. Every time it rains hard, the South Bronx is like gets flooded, right? But you're also seeing that in the education system, right? There's a reason why the chancellor's putting his kid in private school, because he knows the garbage state that the New York City school systems are in, right? You're seeing that with the when we look at the breakdown of policing and the fact that the city can no longer hire, they wanted to hire thousands this year, and they've had to make cuts in that, right? Tish is going to say that, oh, they can't find the right people, but think of it for a second. Part of the problem why you can't find the right people is because you can't pay an adequate salary that's competitive with other locations, right? So you have a system that's reaching its end. And what I think is happening in the Middle East now is going to further accelerate that situation, because just related to here, in order to get oil now, it's going to go through China, right? And that creates less demand for American dollars, which goes back to the debt problem that we have in this place, and the fact that we don't build anything. And so you're seeing a lot of problems compound, and they're going back to the local level, okay? And all those problems are coming to a head now, okay? And I just don't know how we're gonna get through it. But I can tell you for a fact that, especially when it comes to inner cities, they have massive problems that they cannot fix overnight. That's gonna take I would think at least a decade to get through it. And those problems are reflected in this very situation where you have jurors that seem to be, pretty stupid, in my opinion, and you have a young man who killed the officer. You have both lives ruined, from a young man who grew up in a system where he's undereducated. He probably comes from a broken family himself, and he himself, no doubt, probably has a young son there who's going to grow up without a father himself, and probably he's going to be involved in that similar lifestyle as well. So again, you have lots of problems that are compounding, and they're all coming to a head at the same time.
I got to push back a little bit too. I think, John, some of us, including you, we have been pretty damn vocal. We've been stomping our feet, and we're not giving up in this fight. Some people have to fight, and that's why I'm always disappointed. And I say any active chief of the NYPD is ultimately responsible for the complicit behavior. And that's why I wrote down a quote by Abe Lincoln, which I think really applies to this. Let me find it again. Abe Lincoln said, "To sin by silence when they should protest makes cowards of men." And that's why I have a problem with the leadership of the NYPD, because active chiefs that are intelligent, not all of them, some of them are intelligent, like LePetri, that understand police work, that know what's going on with the legislation, know what's going on with the apparatus right now, know that everything anti-police right now is just tearing away at the fabric of the city and the police department, weaken the police department, understand the justice system, and they stay silent. They stay silent, and that makes those men sinners. And that's why when we talked about a long time ago, John, about the Bible, and I'm not a religious man, but I totally agree that cowards are considered far worse than murderers and rapists because they're silent. They're allowing these things to happen. We have a duty, we have a duty to fight for those that can't fight for themselves. We have a duty to stand up for people. There's no doubt about it. We have to. And Marlon, I agree. And I think there's, believe it or not, I think there's a lot of similarities. I think some people wouldn't agree. I think there's a lot of similarities from baby boomers to millennials. And it's quite interesting because baby boomers will tell you millennials are entitled. But so were baby boomers were entitled also because everything was cheap. When you were a baby boomers, housing was cheap. Everything was much more affordable. Basic life was much better, right? Post World War II, everything was affordable for the baby boomers. And for the millennials, I think a lot of millennials say to themselves, well, why are we entitled? I mean, life is full of uncertainty, right? The uncertainty is, could you actually find a job? Could you actually afford a house? Could you afford anything? But I believe the millennials also have a sense of entitlement also. I mean, everything is at their fingertips because of digital era. So we have suffered from a weakened society. Everything has become weaker. And it does start with the baby boomers. So I think that's a great point, Marlon. Society has been weakened. That's why we often hear the World War II generation is the best generation we've ever had. Because they built this country. They built this country. Back then, we were building on infrastructure. They built a strong military, a strong presence, strong politics, strong foreign policy. And look at how we have deteriorated from that point. And we've gotten to a point in New York City and other blue cities throughout this country where cops don't matter at this point. They're peasants, that we don't understand the system, that yes, we want to protect civil liberties. But to protect civil liberties, we need a strong law enforcement profession. We have to support our police. And I want people to think about that. And after I spoke about that, I saw Mike Marino put a comment in. That's why, and basically what he said is that the district attorneys put these lesser charges in just in case someone is acquitted of those higher charges. I just want you to think about that again. The reality is, for this savage cretin that took the life of Jonathan Diller, that if the lesser charges weren't there, he'd be walking the streets. So who's to say this can't happen again? Who's to say that another cop can't lose their life by the hands of another, and that savage cretin walk the streets of New York City? We are headed there. We are getting to this point where people are now emboldened. I mean, think about this. Some savage cretin could be saying, wow, this guy almost got off. The next person could get off. And that's what we're telling our society right now. I mean, it took 11 people couldn't convince one other person that this savage cretin committed murder, took the life, not just a life, but what is symbolic when you take the life of a police officer? It's the fabric of society. We've torn down our fabric of society has been so diminished, and we don't even understand how the system works and how life becomes prosperous. It's just absolutely disgusting. And that's why, John, I have to push back. So including you, John, you have been a part of this fight. You have done your job. You've done your due diligence to fight. I mean, how much more can you do? You're not supposed to get violent. You've been an extremely how do I say this? Let me just say, you've been motivated, you've been dedicated, you've been committed on social media in your presence, and we all have, as far as being part of this fight. And that's why we call out failed leadership, and that's why we call out failed legislation, and that's why we dissect it, and that's why we do this platform, because we care. So that's what's important, because we are that protest. When I tell you Abe Lincoln says the sin of men are the cowards that are quiet, that are silent, we are that opposition. We are that protest, and we have to keep doing it. What we need to do is just keep growing and strengthen numbers. And that's why, to our friends and listeners, you are a part of this, and I appreciate it, right? Urban Taunt says, John, you're an advocate. We all are advocates. Our friends and listeners, we're all advocates because we're building an army to actually combat and protest the society that we've gotten to. It's sad. But New York City, to me, is not a viable place anymore. That's not a place you want to raise kids. I mean, think about that. Think about the values we've lost in New York City and other blue cities. It's absolutely disgusting. What does Stephanie Diller tell her son Ryan? I mean, some people say, oh, the guy's still getting 90 years in jail. That's not the point. But when a justice system is not served, we failed. We failed the entire society, entire system. And there are people And I you know, John, you said this often, and I agree. There are people that are just downright evil. And if you're at the upper echelon of the NYPD and you have 30, 40 years, some are police experience, and you can just sit back and allow corruption and allow things to play out like this and not say a word, well, then you know what? You're evil too.
Yeah, like I said, I'm like, look, I really just think I hear everything you guys are saying, and obviously we're not doing enough. I mean, like, I hear what you're saying, Maul, and there was a system in place, but we suck at fighting back against that system. The boomers suck. Yeah, you guys were horrible, right? Like, suck, terrible. We're way worse than them. Because we're just like, oh, yeah, whatever. I got my iPhone. I have air conditioning. I'll just order my Uber Eats. Like, we suck, dude. Like, honestly, like, you know, like, yeah, all right, yeah, we push back a lot more than most, right? Like, had our lives upended, lives threatened, families threatened, 100%. We still haven't done enough because nothing's changing, dude. So, like, yeah, we might be the point guard on the team, bro. But guess what? When your team's losing, fucking, you got a winning record of 0 wins and 8,000 losses. I mean, it doesn't matter, bro. We're still losing. You know, I can't not hold us just as accountable as I hold these Chiefs. Like I always say, look, they could have been Chiefs 20 years ago, and we would probably be celebrated in them, and they'd go down in history as some of the best Chiefs we've ever had. Right? Shell worked for a different mayor 20 years ago. We'd probably be best friends right now, bro. But he worked for the most corrupt administration ever, and so he had to fight back against all that corruption and incompetence and insanity. The same type of political insanity that led to the murder of Jonathan Diller, that led to the murder of this 7-month-old girl, that led to the numerous amount of violent repeat offenders that we see being held completely unaccountable. He decided to work with that, right? And so I always say, well, guess what? It's not, you don't get to pick the time that you get to be a cop. You don't get to pick the time you get to be in police, and we don't get to pick the time that we're alive, dude. We're alive here for a reason. This is the time we're alive. And, you know, I hate the comments. Oh, New York's done. New York's this. Forget New York. Well, guess what? It's coming to you, bro. It's coming everywhere. You don't stop it in New York. It's coming to Florida. It's coming wherever you think you're safe. Whatever place. Oh, it's great here. South Dakota. There's nobody. It's coming. The politics is coming because the system's in place, and we're unwilling to fight back at the system. We're unwilling to call out the bullshit. Just think of if everyone that thought that bail reform was actually a bad idea spoke out about it. Just think about all the people in policing that called out the insanity of bail reform. It would be stopped dead in its tracks immediately. Kathy Hochul would go running right to her office and undo bail reform so quick, wouldn't even happen. But we don't do that. Instead, we have police unions across New York State kissing her ass. And then you got the same cops across the country kissing those police unions' ass. And then the same thing with Tish. You're going to come out and you're going to put all this bullshit out about the SRG and all this bullshit that we don't need counterterrorism at a protest. And you're going to lie about the crime statistics. And all you fucking cops with integrity, all of you who love the profession, what are you going to do? You're going to kiss her ass and pretend like she's not selling you a bag of goods and she doesn't know what the fuck she's doing. You know? Yeah. Am I doing it? No. Are you doing it? No. But it's all of us, dude. We suck. Our generation sucks. We're failing. Could we have done more? Absolutely. Absolutely, we could have done more. We could have done different things. We could have ran for office. We could have got involved with the unions. We could have did a lot of different things that we didn't do. And I'm not going to sit here and be like, well, I'm just a victim of my circumstance and the time and my society. I'm not a victim. I went along with a lot of this bullshit for a long time myself. This is all our fault, dude. And it's getting worse, and we're not doing anything to change it. We're just going to go, oh, this is the route. Oh, because Trump's doing this, and Israel's doing this, and this and that. And it's like, no, well, what the fuck are you doing? What am I doing? Oh, I'm on a podcast? All right, wow, great. I mean, like, good. Yeah. Is it educational for people? Yeah. Is it supportive for police? Yeah. Do cops Is it good for cops' mental health? Yeah, I know it is. We get messages every day. I know that cops love this. I know that civilians get educated because of it, because we have a lot of civilians like, wow, I didn't know that. I didn't understand that. Thank you for breaking this down for me. I don't get this from the news where they just give me 30-second sound bites and they have cowardly people go on there and sell whatever fucking narrative they want them to sell. So, yeah, are we doing? We're doing a lot more than most, but we still suck, dude. We still suck. Nothing's changing. There is nothing in New York changing, which means nothing's going to change nationally, which means nothing's going to change in policing. Policing is on a downward spiral, and it's all our fault. Our quality of life is on a downward spiral, and it's all our fault. Our country's failing, and it's all our fault. We are handing this country over to our next generation in a much worse place than it was handed to us. Oh yeah, do I got more money than my grandparents and my parents and the rest of my family? Yeah, I do. But I'm handing a world over to my kids that's unrecognizable from the world I grew up in. And it's, I'm not going to not blame myself as well. I do. It's just how I look at it.
Yeah, the problem with a lot of money, and this country is never been richer, right? With paper, problem with that is that you don't have goods to use that money on, and all those goods are made in China, right? But so I unfortunately think that I'm getting to the point where I believe the system, things have to hit rock bottom before people wake up, right? And I saw a comment here from Chief Lukash. He says another problem is a lot of people flee the problem, including himself. Instead of staying and fighting for what's right, look at all the people who fled New York. Human nature to look for an easier route. And he has a point there, He has a point. But the problem is that nobody wants to be the last guy who wants to be the last person in the room to shut off the lights. People who understand the situation look at themselves as being kind of what can I do? I have to protect my family, right? And they make a choice that's better for the long-term health of their family. So I don't think there's any other way it's gonna have things are gonna get better in New York than people vote with their feet and leave, and then things hit rock bottom. Because the problem is, how do you wake up the other people in the system who are still benefiting from the system as the system is collapsing? Right. The problem with telling cops, we talk a lot about the problems in the NYPD, and the problem is that a lot of cops who see the problem, they're making plans to leave, right? And the cops who are in the system still, the cops who have time on, a lot of them are in cushy gigs. A lot of them are protected. They have enough time on where they know a chief or they know somebody in charge now. So they're in a lot of ways they're kind of, they're kind of protected, and they're close to retirement. So what are they gonna do? They're not gonna push back against the system. They're looking at it like it's almost time for me to, get my pension, and then I'm gonna leave. What can I do? It is what it is, right? So I don't think there's any way we're gonna stop this runaway train, on our own, because again, there's too many people eating off of this runaway train, and nobody wants to be the last guy in the room to turn off the lights, right? To be stuck in that room, when to turn off the lights, right? Now, earlier I referenced that it's not just happening in New York City, but it's happening in all the other cities that are degrading right now, that have fallen apart, and that are in fiscal problems, right? That list of cities is pretty long, right? Pretty long. Chicago, LA, like I said, Boston, right? All facing fiscal problems. And I'm bringing that up because here's another officer who is simply doing his job, right? And he made a car stop. He and his partners pulled over a vehicle that was stolen, and with a carjack suspect in it. And the suspect tried to flee, and he fired at he shot the suspect, and Harry is now being charged with manslaughter, right? And again, this is similar to what happened in New York City, where you know, this EDP in Queens, Javez Chakrabarty, you know, when he approached the responding officers with a knife in his hand, and we had the mayor and you know, other people in the media sphere don't want any sort of culpability on the EDP, you know. And again, it's like we're getting to the point where an officer defending his life on duty is going to be charged with a crime, you know. And I'm saying the reason why this is all happening is because these places are all falling apart, and the problems that we've reached the point where we can no longer kick the can down the road. All these problems, right? These problems are all related to bigger problems in society, and the politicians do not want to solve it, because solving the problems means they're not eating off the system, and they don't want to stop that. So what are they going to do? The only thing left to do, right, as we've said, they're going to lie about things like crime. They're going to lie about the conditions in the city, right? And they're going to displace the blame on law enforcement because they're an easy scapegoat, and because like we said in a prior episode, the Democrats and progressives especially spent the last 10 plus years making cops the enemy of society. Okay, so they're going to displace all of this on police. And what was I going to say? And let's go back to Boston for a quick second. It's gotten here's the absurdity of it, right? In that incident in Boston, right, the DA is refusing to release the body camera, right? The same people who push for body cameras and cops now don't want to release the body cameras because it's inconvenient. Okay, and again, it's because they need a scapegoat. They need something to push to displace all the problems in society too, because we've reached a point where it's very hard for them to kick the can down the road and to you know, to ignore them. So to go back to what John is saying, it's not just millennials. Okay, it's a bigger system that is coming to its end, and yeah, millennials have been a little entitled, but so have baby boomers, because the World War II generation left them with the keys to the kingdom, and they grew up in a world where, in a lot of ways, they had everything in front of them that the prior generations didn't. Now we do too when it comes to the internet, but a lot of the essentials that we have are much harder, like a house, like being able to afford a family, like, you know, like being able to live in you know, the same lifestyle that the prior generations had. So,
well, I often say, right, and I say it often, and I say it constantly on the platform, the law enforcement profession with the boots on the ground is the most tangible form of government. So to get to an agenda, a lot of these self-promoting politicians, legislators, and leadership in law enforcement profession in blue cities throughout this country are eating off of it, because the boots on the ground are the most tangible form of government. So, and the reason why I say that is because you can change a lot in this country with the law enforcement profession, because it is a tangible form of government. You can create laws and bills in a snap, right, with the city council, and change the way the boots on the ground police, and it has a major impact and effect on that particular city. Just think about the laws, the legislation that's been created in New York City that actually changes the way the city flows, right? When we talk about bail reform and we move into things that the city council has pushed, let's talk about the chokehold ban, right? That actually inhibits police officers from protecting themselves. Let's talk about the diaphragm law that inhibits police officers from protecting themselves. But in essence, what that really does is police officers are representative of everyone in this country, right? Because we give the power and responsibility to the law enforcement profession to protect people so that you can be busy in society, so that you can be oblivious, so you can be at your job, so that you can be buried in your phone, so that you don't have to worry about your own protection because you have a law enforcement profession out there. But we have this legislation that has just stripped away at the law enforcement profession because it's an upside down world, and everyone's eating off of it. And then you just see the protest settlement, legislation after legislation that strips away from the police department that allows this society just to run rampant. It's absolutely disgusting. I mean, think about it here. JDP 0704. Good morning. Friend to the podcast says a cop killer acquitted for murder and a 7-month-old baby killed in a gang crossfire all in 24 hours. Not a single person in the street saying anything. Yeah, it's absolutely disgusting. And no one's saying anything about that because there's no benefit for anyone to get in the streets right now. But if they get in the streets for a pro-Palestinian protest or something that's anti-Israel, they get in the streets because it's funded by Soros, because it changes the agenda. And a lot of people eat off of it. It was what's Mullen's saying. That's what's happening. And I mentioned that, Mullen, about the millennials. I think that the millennials and baby boomers, it comes full circle, are all entitled in different ways and have not really contributed as much as they could to society. And that's why the World War II generation is such an amazing generation. You look at famous athletes, ball players, that like Ted Williams, that were out there playing ball, making money, but instead they left their careers. They left making millions to fight for this country. That's what the difference is. And I think that's what Rob Lukesh, my brother, I love you, Rob. And I think that's what Rob was kind of referencing to, that people, instead of staying in New York City and fighting for it, they left for better pastures. And when we compare it to people of World War II that left their careers making so much money to fight for this country because that was important. Everyone was part of that fight. It wasn't, well, hey, you're an elite, you stay where you are, and peasants, like the peasant cops, will go out and fight it. No, everyone was a part of that system. That's why they were such a good generation. And that's why I believe, John, I get what you're saying, but I think that's why I say strength in numbers. Everyone has to be part of this fight, but in different facets, right? Because you can't be in 100 places at one time, right? John, you're on social media. I'm on social media. Marlon's on social media. Maybe someone else is out on the street. Someone else is we're teaching our kids to get jobs, that to build infrastructure, right? Because we've lost that, right? Have your kid, not just tell your kid, oh, you have to be a doctor. Motivate your kids to become plumbers, electricians, construction, do things that actually build the fabric of the society. And we all are part of this fight. And that's why I say it's failed leadership of the NYPD by being complicit with these active chiefs and not saying anything. Just think about that. In World War II, men that were making millions because they were famous athletes left their careers to fight in World War II. Could you see active chiefs of the NYPD say, you know what? I'm going to fight for what's wrong, these atrocities, and I'm going to put my neck out there, even if it means I no longer have to serve in this profession. I'll find something else. No, they won't do it. And that's why the World War II generation was so great, because everyone was a part of the fight to serve the fabric of this country. Everyone wanted to serve in a different facet, whether it was being away at war, whether it was building infrastructure. Everyone wanted to be a part of America. That's where we lost it.
You're muted, John.
I was cleaning my garage yesterday and I was listening to all these X Spaces, and they were all about Iran and Israel. And I listened to all these 23, 24-year-old kids. They're all over social media. They got hundreds of thousands of followers, and they're advocating for war. And I'm like, it was like the funniest thing to me. And I'm like, none of yous served in the military. None of yous are going to fight for Israel. None of yous are going to run to Iran wearing an American uniform. Who the hell are you to advocate for war? And this is just where we're at as a society. And yet these people are looked at by the masses as voices of who we should just look to decide whether or not we should agree with the war or not agree with the war. I'm like, there's this kid on social media. I don't even know why he's an American. He should just move to Israel. His name's like Ilal Yaakov or something. pushing for the war in Iran, saying why it's so great, the war in Iran. Like, dude, you're 23 years old. If I was 23 years old and I believed in the war, you better be damn sure I'd be wearing a green uniform flying over to Iran. You know, right now, the way that I believe that policing should happen, I will put my uniform on right now and go do it. Like, do we have people that do that? You know, we don't. You know, you don't. You have these people up here telling you what policing is, and they would never police in your era or do what you do. Never do it. And it's good. Let's celebrate them. Let's cheer how great they were. Or let's just say how great their speeches are now, or what they said. You know, one time I was at a Christmas party and LePetri shook my hand. You know, Jessica Tisch wasn't that bad to me. You know, I'm like, dude. And again, I'm not just blaming New York. I'm saying this is a national problem. This is a national problem. The first problem is when we talk about law enforcement, there is zero advocacy for law enforcement. Zero. It is at near zero level for actual moral, good, common sense policing. Other than this podcast, I don't know one outlet that I could listen to. I don't. I'm not lying. I don't know one outlet. I don't know one person. I don't. You know, and it's sad. It's, you know, and I'm like, you know, and like, what? I should pretend that that's not the truth. That is the damn truth. Do you know how many people listen to this podcast and they'll never admit it? They'll never admit it. They listen to it. They agree with it. They agree with most of it. Maybe not everything. Maybe not all the stuff. But they agree with 99.8% of it. And they'll never admit it. Why? You know, and they're high up in not only in actual leadership across this country right now, but in the biggest voices and the biggest advocates, supposed advocates for policing. They listen to this podcast every day. They know everything we're saying is right. And they'll never say it. They'll never push it. But you know what they'll do? They'll celebrate the crime numbers in New York City that they know are bullshit. They'll celebrate Jessica Tisch being the police commissioner, and they know she doesn't deserve it, and they know she doesn't have the experience to do it, and they know that a lot of her decision-making is very poor. And guess what else they'll do? They'll kiss Zohran Mamdani's ass because, hey, it's beneficial, it's lucrative, it's nice. Everybody's on the surface. Oh, I support the police. I support Jonathan Diller. I support Jonathan's wife. I support his kid. I support this. You don't support anybody. Again, we honor cops in death. We never honor them in life. We don't even talk about that right now. The NYPD is the most scrutinized job on the face of this earth that's ever been, and they're being held to impossible standards. Someone came in here and said, you got to give credit, though. They fill the academy classes. If I told you right now, if I gave you a job offering and I said, look, I'm going to pay you $150,000 a year. You just got to show up. And I have no qualifications. I could fill academy classes too. Does that mean that that's someone, when you call 911, that you're going to feel safe? Does that mean that they're staffing the NYPD with people that you send your kids off to school and you don't worry because you know there's a competent police force out there? You send your mother goes out shopping and you're not worried about it. Your disabled parent goes out shopping and you're not worried about it because you know there's competent people. That's not the force today. That is not the police force today. Come on. I look at these cops. Some of them are in their 20s. I'm like, if I called 911 and you showed up, I'd never call 911 ever again. Never again. It's a waste of money. It's an absolute joke. You're not helping nobody. Even if you wanted to pee on me if I was on fire, you're too incompetent to even aim properly. You wouldn't even get your piss on me. You know, I mean, and like, you know, so I don't find it an accomplishment that we've dumbed down what it means to be a police officer and who should be a police officer. Again, even when our standards were higher, even when they were much higher than they are now, even at that point, policing, there are not many people that are good at policing. They're just not. even in the profession. There's just not. Like maybe less than 10%. When we had great standards, I would say even 10% is high. You know, to be a good cop, you have to be able to input information at high levels and understands what's happening. Walk into a store today. Just look around. You walk into a store. There's probably 4,000 data points that are going on in that store. Guy's at a cash register wearing a green shirt. He's paying for the money. He's using a credit card. There's a girl over there looking. There's some guy that looks weird over here. There are thousands of data points when you walk into that store. Most people are only able to grab one or two of those data points. Most people in society. As a cop, you need to be able to grab almost all of them and then be able to make decisions based upon that in a moment's notice while your adrenaline's flowing, while your adrenaline's not flowing, while you're tired, while you're hungry, while you're overworked, while you have other things going on in your life. Not a lot of people could do that.
Yeah, that's a good point, John. That's a very good point. You know, a good cop has to be able to comprehend all those data points in real time and make decisions from it, and make decisions that are lawful. You know, when you get a car stop, for instance, right? You don't have like an hour to look through a patrol guide or to look through the penal law book and figure out what I can and can't do. You know, you have to decide on a moment's notice, like, do I have, you know, to put those data points together and be able to do things like, search a vehicle and whatnot. Okay. And I'm going to say that, you know, the quality of cops you have is a reflection of society. As again, as you see the breakdown of things in these big cities, you know, like the education system, like infrastructure and living conditions, you're gonna get a lower quality of cop. Okay, especially if that cop grew up in the inner city. I'm sorry, you absolutely will. Okay, and Eric was talking about World War II and the World War II generation. And I'm just gonna say that back then people had a stronger sense of national pride, and I think that sense of national pride is getting eroded, every decade, and I'm going to say that it's probably going to be at its lowest point if things escalate in the Middle East. I don't think national pride could get any lower than that, because again, when people see that their country is ignoring their interests, when we see that our country is ready to go to war, when you have regions of this country that look like third world, like the third world, when you drive through some of those rural areas, like I mentioned before, you think, am I still in America? How is it that a first world country like America could let these towns fall apart in the condition they are? Hell, if you go to some of the inner cities too, you see those same conditions. Drive through Baltimore, Baltimore is again, it's like a third world country. Okay, you take somebody from a country like overseas, a country that you would think is a third world country, right? From, say, parts of China, and you take them to Baltimore, and they look at you like I can't believe this is America. This ain't America that I was told of. This is the America that you see on TV. And when people see that's happening, and they see the country is ready to go to war, for what? Their sense of national pride erodes even further, and back in the World War II days, guys would, that pride was so high that you're willing to sacrifice your career to go and defend that. But to be honest now, who would be willing to sacrifice their career to? I mean, like, what would you be defending? You wouldn't be defending America if you go over there. I mean, so I think that sense of national pride is eroded, and we're going to see it go even further. And that's dangerous, by the way. Okay, that's dangerous, because when that national pride erodes, you're seeing the rise of other things like Marxism and tribalism, and eventually all of these things come to a head. And I'm not sure if you'd have much of a country left when they do.
That's a great point. And I actually, Marlon, I can speak from experience because, upon retirement, which is now nearly 4 years, I've traveled a great portion of the overseas and almost the entire country. I traveled almost the entire world in my time during retirement. Most of the country by RV, so I was actually on the ground, right? Not just flying to places. I've traveled throughout almost every state. And I've been to so many different countries, and I can tell you this, and I spoke about this numerous times with my wife. I said, sometimes we would go to places, and she said, "Oh, I heard be careful in this spot." And I can tell you this, I've been to some wild places in Brazil, in different parts, and yeah, there were some rough spots, but I never felt more uneasy like I did in our own cities in this country in comparison to places I've been overseas. So it's amazing the economic wheel that we have in New York City, the dichotomy we have. We have people that are living, just not the reality that some others are living in this country. There are some people in this country that are living so poor that they have to have their shirt on by string. I mean, to me, listen, I've been to numerous ghettos and working in rough spots in New York City, but it's a different type of poor. Because I've been to some spots throughout this country, traveling by RV, where people are legitimately poor. They can't even afford to get a pair of pants. Their belt is a shoestring, and there's some parts of the ghetto that people are poor, but it's different. They have access, and they have access to so many things, and that's what really kills me. And is that you have so much access and you're not doing it. That's just your pure laziness, where some people in this country are in some places that are so oppressed and suppressed that they don't even have access. Like parts of Mississippi. Mississippi is the lowest economic state in this country. I've been to some spots in Mississippi like, wow, how do people live like this? Their entire home is breaking down. It's almost like a shack that you would think you would see in a third world country. And I've been to some third world countries, and what I expected was far different of what I saw in comparison. I said the States, I think, is far worse. And Marlon, it's a great point. I drove around to Baltimore. I've been to Baltimore so many times, and there's a huge dichotomy there. If you go to Baltimore and you go by the water where the cobblestones are, it's beautiful. There's so many nice restaurants, but only a few blocks away, and on the north end, I mean, you would think you're in a third world country when those boarded up apartments and boarded up row houses like you would see in the movie The Wire. That's legit, and it really looks like a third world country. It's completely decimated, and some people here put in the chat, some of our friends and listeners, Kensington in North Philly. Yeah, that's another spot that's looking terrible. This is in our own country. I mean, you go to some spots in the South Bronx also, like absolutely just decimated. And there shouldn't be anyone homeless in this country. But yeah. KB New York City says it here. The Inner Harbor. Yeah, it's a beautiful spot in Baltimore, right? The Inner Harbor, you have the steakhouse, Fleming's, and then you have, Phillips Seafood and some beautiful stuff there. It's beautiful. And you go a couple of blocks away, it's a disaster. Yeah. It really is. It's absolutely terrible. And it's sad. We have third world locations in a first world country. And we have people that just don't understand reality. Look at Jessica Tisch. Jessica Tisch is the police commissioner for New York City, NYPD. We often hear to be an effective New York City police officer, you should have had to live in New York City and understand New York City. Do you think she really understands New York City on the same level a cop has to understand it? Do we believe that Jessica Tisch actually went to the local bodega to shop? Do we believe that Jessica Tisch went to the mall? Do you think Jessica Tisch goes to the Staten Island Mall? Do you think that Jessica Tisch goes to Kings Plaza Mall to shop? No. She's an elite. Her boots on the ground are not the same as the boots on the ground of a police officer that grew up in New York City. She can't even fathom what it's like for, I'm sure she just summons a car to pick her up. It's just far different. And Mike LaPetri, with 30 or 40 some odd years of policing, he knows damn well what life is supposed to be. So when Abe Lincoln says the sin of a silenced man makes you a coward, that's why I say Mike LaPetri is a jellyfish. He has not said a word about the atrocities going on right now. And for the unions just to stomp their feet, it's not enough for me. It's not enough. It's not enough just to stomp your feet. Go to courtrooms and fill courtrooms. Next time the unions go to a courtroom, they're going to fill the courtroom and they're going to watch a perpetrator, savage crime that took the life of a fellow police officer walk out the door. That's what they're going to do. You're going to be at the courtroom watching them walk out the door, because if those lesser charges weren't on the table, that animal would be walking the streets right now. Just think about that. The next time, will lesser charges be on the table? It's sad we got to that point. But yet police officers are faced with a system out there right now that if police officers make a mistake or even take action, they're looking to put police officers away for life. And we're completely upside down. And how do we fix it? For the union, it's just pack courtrooms. That's what we do. Yeah, Sleepy Joe says pack courtrooms. That's what we do. Packing courtrooms is not enough. We need to fight harder. And that's the difference of World War II, is everyone was a part of the fight, even the elites. And are the elites part of the fight right now? No. No, they're not part of the fight because they're for themselves, just as more intelligent. So, John, take it away, brother.
Yeah, Pat Donahue says, anyone else notice how the mayor, the police commissioner, and the spoon-fed media have downplayed, suppressed that not only was the 7-month-old shot and killed, but her 2-year-old brother was also shot? No, Pat, like no one's noticed that because no one's fucking pointing it out. You're pointing it out. We're pointing it out. Nobody else is talking about it, and that's the thing. Like, I don't blame the voters. I don't blame the shitty cops. I don't blame anybody. I blame all of us because I think that we failed, right? You will be found guilty. You will be judged by a jury of your peers. Those are your peers, people. Don't you hold your peers accountable? Don't you educate your peers? Don't you speak with your peers? No, we don't. We don't need to do that today. We got TikTok. We got X. We got Instagram. Like, it's funny, man. I'm in Florida and like everyone's kind of nice here, but they're not like really, really nice. They're not real. When I run into like New York guys, it's the weirdest thing. I could walk into like anywhere. I walk in a supermarket, a bar, a restaurant, and instantly you see some douche sitting there, kind of muscular, got a mean mug on his face. Hey, where you from? Where you from? And I'm like, I have like a little interaction right in the beginning, and then it's cool, and then it breaks down, and then we're talking, right? And I was like, I'm like, I miss that, man. Like, I miss like the way New Yorker really was. Like when New Yorkers had accents, like when people in New York City, you knew they were from New York City because the way they talked. And I'm like, that's actually really being nice. Like someone not afraid to call you on your shit or say something to you or confront you, not know you, talk to you. Today, like Florida, these like little flip-flop wearing, like they wear like these polo shirts with their favorite college team hat. They don't even want to acknowledge you, dude. They're walking their dog. They're like, ooh, like, hey, what's up? They're like, oh yeah, what's up? And it's like, I like, we do not, and that's what New York is becoming. It's becoming like that soulless place. It's just becoming soulless. Like we're afraid to talk to each other for whatever the difference is. We might look exactly alike. We might even went to the same college, but hey, maybe you don't make as much money as I do or whatever. Like New York is turning into that exact soulless place. So your peers, they've made that decision. So ultimately you've made that decision. Listen, I mean, like, look at this. You have the chief of department, the mayor of New York City, and the police commissioner. I'm going to play the police commissioner's speech right now. But this is the day after a 7-month-old was murdered on New York City streets. It's the day after a 2-year-old was shot in a gang incident. Now, I don't care if she wasn't selling you a load of garbage. I don't care if this was the damn truth, that in fact they were making history and crime was down. Do you not have the ability to read the room? Do you not have any empathy? And like, honestly, Mondani's a puppet, dude. Mondani is straight from central casting. He doesn't run New York City. She does. If the police if I'm the mayor of New York City and the police commissioner call me, I'm going to do a press conference on crime numbers and I'd like you to be there. I'd be like, not only am I not coming, you're not doing the press conference. You could wait. We just had a 7-month-old baby shot dead. You're going to wait. You're going to wait. You're going to show a little bit of empathy to the people of New York City. Nobody needs to know how great Jessica Tisch is doing. I know you got the whole Theodore Roosevelt thing going on. I know. Same way he got a lot of nice, friendly media headlines. You're doing it. Your friends and family and your connections. Look, lady, we all get it. Your name's on almost every building in New York City. We get it. You're nobody special. You're not a fucking crime fighter. Stop the bullshit. Stop the bullshit. All right. And even if you are, you shouldn't be patting yourself on the back every fucking chance you get. And like literally the minute that this happened, I literally erased the post. I wrote, don't worry though. Police Commissioner Tisch is going to be quick to let you know how fast her crime numbers are down and how she's making history. And I erased it because I was like, you know what? I'm not even going to put that out there. But I even thought when I was thinking that, I didn't think she would do it the next day. I thought she'd wait to let the weekend blow over, let the funeral blow over. You know what I mean? And then we'll go back to, hey, don't worry about it. Crime's down. We're making history. Yeah, I thought she would do that, but no. And dude, the sicker thing of it all is not only is the fake news media celebrating this, you cops are, law enforcement nationwide is. The conservative social media talking heads are. I'm like disgusted, dude. This was absolutely atrocious and disgusting. And at the same point, Mike, if the police commissioner was to call me and I was the chief of department and she's like, we're doing a press conference on crime numbers, I'd be like, yeah, I'm not doing it. And if you're going to make me do it, and I don't think you should do it, and if you're going to make me do it, I'm going to go down to 230 Broadway. I'm going to put my papers in. Because that is so tone deaf, I can't even bear to do that. And you know he knows it, because watch his face as she's talking. Watch his face the entire time. For what, dude? For what? You reach the highest pinnacle as you can as a uniformed member of service. Your pension's not getting that much bigger, dude. What? Oh, I know, but your after job, you get a $500,000-600,000 being a head of security here, or some other bullshit job where you're gonna be just as inept in and have to sell some other bullshit and fluff some other billionaire's pillow at night so they feel better. Come on, bro. This is sick, man. This is sick.
Thank you, Mayor, and good afternoon.
And look how happy she is to talk about herself, by the way. Yeah, you're doing such a great fucking job. So great. You're the best. We should pick every little billionaire Nepo baby and make them police commissioners across the country.
Before we begin, I want to address yesterday's verdict in the murder of Detective Jonathan Diller. 2 years ago, Jonathan was killed in the line of duty while doing what he had chosen to do, protecting the city. He stepped toward danger without hesitation, and he did it as part of a life that was defined by service. I am deeply disappointed that the top murder charge did not result in a conviction. Based on all of the evidence presented at trial, I am convinced that this was an act of intentional murder. The failure to convict on murder one landed like a gut punch to all members of the NYPD. The defendant was convicted on all other counts, and we expect the sentence in this case to reflect the gravity of what was done and the loss that it caused. Jonathan's life, his service, and his legacy will remain a part of this department, carried forward by the men and women of the NYPD. May his memory continue to be a blessing.
The most coldest speech ever. Let me get this out of the way. Let me say this before I celebrate myself. Had to read it from a piece of paper. Wasn't zero emotion to it, zero anything in it, because it's not even real. Somebody wrote that down for her. And you people are celebrating it. Oh, but if you say anything, it's just because you're bitter. It's just because of your life choices, John. You just got to let it go, John. You just got to stop talking on social media. Stop doing the podcast that I listen to every day. Stop tweeting on social media because, I know I hang on every single word you tweet, but stop doing it, John, because it's not friendly. And I really liked what her speechwriter wrote down for her and how she put it out and how the New York Post wrote about it. I really like that, John. I don't want the reality of that. What the fuck was that?
Yeah, they couldn't even let the body get, the body get cold, from the little baby that was murdered. You know, I, I too found this a little inappropriate. Like the timing, you couldn't wait a couple days. I mean, like what, is what actually happened? You have to wonder what actually happened. Are they so panicked because both of these incidents happened, this week, that they figure, we got to get in front of the media, we got to get in front of the narrative, before people start really talking about crime. I think I thought that the timing of this was very inappropriate. But again, we have people who are detached from from the peasantry. Okay, these people don't live on the streets of New York. They don't interact with the common people in New York. Like John said, they're not going to a bodega, like Eric said. They're not. They you know what Tish is a billionaire. What does she have in common with the the regular people on the street? What I wonder if she would have even had a career had it not been for that Tish name, from the beginning. Okay, did she ever have to do anything on her own to get that job? Did she have to submit a resume, or was that job always guaranteed for her? you know it the, you know I agree with John when he says what he says about Florida. There's something about New York City. Maybe it's the fact that we all live on top of each other. That kind of it like strengthens community. It, even more so than say in Florida, where you can you can be really detached from other people. You could live in your own little enclave, and like you're not really on top of each other. And you may not see your neighbor as much as you do in New York, again, where we're literally on top of each other. I think I've seen that myself. I haven't been in Florida as long as John has, but when I was there, I did kind of notice that a bit. But again, I think that these people are detached, and I think you're seeing that lack of empathy in the fact that they're detached from that sort of community that those of us on the streets of New York and living the blue collar existence in New York City.
I'm glad, Maul, I'm glad we're talking about this. And John, I'm glad that you mentioned that, right? Because this is my analogy. So traveling the entire country by RV, and I end up spending a lot of time in LA when Derek was getting treated at Los Angeles Children's Hospital. And this is my analogy. And I met a lot of people, and they're like, oh, man, I thought New Yorkers were rude. And then when I went to New York, everybody was so cool. And I said, yeah, you'll see. And when I'm talking about New York, I'm talking about the real New Yorkers, right? We're talking about Brooklyn, Staten Island, Queens, the Bronx, not these transplants that live in Manhattan or, I call it Manhattan too, Williamsburg and, gentrified parts of Bushwick. I'm talking about the real New Yorkers like us that grew up in New York and had the New York accent. And, our way of endearing terms was to like making fun of each other. Like, growing up, it was like, hey, what's up, dickhead? That was your buddy. But people don't do that outside New York. It was like a term of endearment. And here's my analogy. And I spent a lot of time in LA. And I'm not knocking, if anyone here is from LA, I'm not knocking everyone. But a good majority of people from LA, I said, there's a lot of people that were super nice, but kind of like fake. And I was like, the difference between someone in LA and New York was if you got a flat tire, like the people in LA would smile at your face and they'll be so nice. You're like, hey, I'm going to help you out today. But they're never going to show up. But the guy in New York is like, come on, buddy, I'll help you out. Come on, I gotta go. I'm busy. But they're actually going to help you. And that was my analogy. That was the difference. Like people were so nice and they'll smile at you, but it was different. In New York, I felt like you actually bonded with people. It was different relationships. And not just, in New York City. And John, I think that's what you meant, at least for me, growing up in Brooklyn and Staten Island. And I spent, I lived in the Bronx a long time in Queens. That to me, that was the relationship I had with people. It was like very warm. And It's different from other cities that I've been to and places where people are nice, but it was different. It was much more intimate in New York. Like you actually bond with people, and people hang out with each other, like you said, mauling on top of each other, right? Like I remember hanging out on a stoop. Like who does that anymore, right? You hang out on a stoop and you talk with your neighbors. I'm sure that happens in other cities in New York, probably Boston and things like that. But especially in New York City, you hang out on the stoop or you talk to your neighbors. Like I remember, John, they do this big time. I'm sure that you did it in Bensonhurst. Parts of Brooklyn I lived in Sheepshead Bay. Sitting outside and people just pull out their chairs on the block and talking to your neighbors. And that's what that was the wholesome part of New York City, at least for me. And I think that's where we lost it. And I just want to get back to Jessica Tisch now. And JDP0704, good morning. This, I think, is the comment of the day. Jessica Tisch's privilege in this world is like she walks on rose petals, like in Coming to America. She will never understand. No, and Mom, I'm a firm believer, right? Good cops ask questions they already know the answers to, right? I would always say, like, that's what good cops do. If you're getting debriefed by a cop, they're asking you questions they already know the answers to. When you get questioned by internal affairs, they already know the answers. Well, maybe not now. But you ask the questions to see if people are lying, right? So, Marlon, you asked, do you think that she would have gotten the job? We know the true answer. She's not an amazing crime fighter. I love how people talk about how she's doing an amazing job. She should be there, the Ray Kellys and the Brattons of the world, because they have something to gain by it. Now, I've said the sin of a man is to be a coward and to be silent. That's why I have a problem with Mike LaPetri. Now, Mike LaPetri, I don't expect the active chiefs to be like, oh, screw you. But there's different ways to show that you're in the fight and stand up. And John said it. Mike LaPetri could say, listen, I have 30 some odd years experience. I don't think this is the time for a press conference. We have a 7-month-old baby that's shot. We have an incident. We have a Savage Green that was not acquitted of murder. People are hurting right now. And how he could stand up and say, you know what? I'm not down with this, and go retire. That's how you actually fight back. But he's not willing to do that. And you have to ask yourself, why is he still standing there? That's what I've been asking myself. If Mike LaPetri retired today, he would be making more money than coming to work and standing there like he has a pole up his ass, like she wears a strap on and tells him what to do, because Mike LaPetri has 30 some odd years of police work and just stand. You have to ask him, why is he standing there? So he can show he still has stars on his shoulders, so he can stand there in uniform? You look like a putz because you have an elite who never did any police work. Might as well put a strap on for you, Mike. I think if Jessica Tisch had to put a strap, you would do it, because. And what I'm saying is because it's so important for them to have that prestigious status. Because it's not about money. Because if Mike LaPetri retired today, he'd be far more wealthy than he is right now. So it's about the status. He gets to be in that position. Because you can't get promoted any further in the uniform ranks. He's at the highest uniform rank. And not only that, when he retires, John, I think you and I spoke about this, he doesn't get a 50% pension. He gets a 65% pension of his full salary. And if you're John Shell and you get a bum ankle, you get three quarters. So it's not about money. You have to ask yourself, why is he still standing there? He's standing there because that's what's important to him, to have that status, to have that ego. Shame. You know what? Fight for something. I'm not going to stand with this. I'm going to retire. And here's an intelligent man. He's not a stupid man. That's a shame about this. And that's why I'm disappointed with him. More than Jessica Tisch and more than Zohran Mamdani. We look at this dais right here. Zohran Mamdani, he told you exactly who he is. We know who he is. The people voted for him. Jessica Tisch, she's been implanted by the elites, right? But Mike LaPetri came up through the ranks. He knows what it is to be a cop. He knows what works for this city. And he's just standing there holding his paperwork saying, oh, well, I still got my stars. Meanwhile, he could be at home making more money right now. So it's not about money. It's more about fame.
One quick thing before I go on. I have a question for you guys in the chat and for John and Eric, right? Who do you think this press conference was for? Think about it.
She's right there, the main character. She's right there, dude.
Yeah, but who is she talking? Who are they actually talking to on this press conference? Who is the audience?
What do you mean? She's telling everyone, she's telling the world crime's down, and everyone's like, yeah, crime's down. And the police unions are celebrating it, and all our police leaders are celebrating, and cops who don't know any better are celebrating it, and the public's celebrating it. I mean, this is horror. This is like a birthday party for Jessica Tisch. This isn't a press conference, Marlon. This is the main character right here. This is who makes New York City run in her eyes.
Well, the reason why I'm asking that is I'm asking basically who are they actually telling this to? Because if you think about it, right? Are regular people going to be watching this? Are they going to be paying attention to this? I mean, no. So is the audience really to the press? And if the audience is the press, then is this more them giving the press their marching orders? Basically, shut up about this. Okay, stop talking about this. Stick to the narrative. Crime is down, and that's what you're going to talk about. That's why I asked that question.
You know what, Marlon? I think you're spot on. I think you nailed it. I think that is the narrative. The narrative is that Jessica Tisch is running the whole show right now. Jessica Tisch, in my opinion, we're looking at this dais right now. She's actually the mayor. She's the one that holds the keys. Just as we pointed out, the city council hearings, she was in control of this. I think the Tisch family is running New York City right now. And I think Jessica Tisch is at the helm. And that's why I think she won the job as police commissioner, because you have more power than you do as sanitation. She could control a lot of the facets of New York City. I think this really puts the Tisch family, in my opinion, as the drivers in control of the city. Who's really running it? And John, that's a great point. That, which is surprising, because we heard her speak at funerals before. And we actually gave her credit, right? We said, she was far more endearing. But this speech is terrible, man. I'm with you, John. It was absolutely cold. It was, and John, I think you said, let's get it out of the way. I think you're right. It was like, yeah, we have to mention this. So we'll mention it. And it was so cold and right into what's really going on. And Marlon nailed it. Narrative.
Yeah.
Absolutely disgusting, dude. And it gets worse as it goes on. It just gets worse and worse and worse. And look, here's my problem with the police unions. They're reactive. You guys are reactive. A cop's dead, you react. We get a bad verdict, you react. You get a cop indicted, you react. Where is the proactive actions to stop any of this? There's none. It's just like it's the same thing as what Jessica Tisch is doing now. I'm going to address this because I have to. And that's the same thing I see with the police unions. I'm going to address this because I have to. The only proactive stance that I've seen, the only one that I've seen, has came out of Scott Monroe, and it was 3 years too late. We've been talking about this for 3 years, and you need to do more than a video, and you need to get more than legislation. You need to light the fire under the people that are running the New York City Police Department that, hey, social media influencers shouldn't be making content harassing cops. There are laws currently on the books. The NYPD needs to put out a policy and put out training on how to interact with that to stop people from doing blatant harassment of police officers and interfering with their duties. So doing a social media video, pretending to be a member of the Finest Unfiltered, isn't helping. You're in the position where you could actually even further it and get that over the hump, but you're not doing that. You're just running heels on us. That's my major problem with them, more than anything and anything. So here we go. Let's go. Let's go through this pre-written speech.
I also want to address the tragedy that happened yesterday in Williamsburg. A 7-month-old child was shot and killed, caught in an act of violence on a sidewalk where she should have been safe. I want to provide an update now on this investigation. A 21-year-old male, Amari Green, the trigger puller, who is currently in the hospital, will be arrested and charged with murder and 2 counts of attempted murder. We have also identified the driver of the scooter, but I will not be releasing his name at this time. Today, we are talking about stats, but this incident is a reminder that these numbers represent lives. And as proud as we are of our officers' work to drive down crime, especially gun violence, moments like this deepen our resolve to do everything that we can to stop this from happening again. That is the work, and we are going to keep doing it with the focus and the sense of responsibility that a moment like this demands. 3 months into 2026, we are building on the historic progress that
She never mentions that the little brother was shot. Never mentions it. Totally blows it over. Never brings it up. Never brings it up. But here we go. Let's hear about her history. Nice little pre-written speech. Yeah, let's get these two little things out of the way. I like cops. So here I had someone write something about Diller, and I'm going to mention this 7-month-old that was murdered, not really give you any of the details, and then right into my birthday party. So we're at history again, people. We are at history.
We saw last year and continuing to drive crime down across New York City. Here are some of our top lines. Through the first quarter of the year, murders are at their lowest levels ever. Major crime is down across all 5 boroughs, with the Bronx leading the way, down 9.4%.
So the Bronx is leading the way at 5.9%. Crimes down 5.9%. So, the thing that jumps right off to me when she said that, I was like, wait a minute. What time period are you talking about? What the hell is she talking about? If you look at the 28-day, if you look at the CompStat sheet that's out there, the 28-day shows Bronx overall crimes down 12.07%. So I'm like, all right, so she's not giving us the 28-day period. When I look at the 28-day period, she says overall crime is down, right? 6 whatever percent. Here's the Bronx for 28-day. Murder is up 25%. Rape is up 12.8%. Shooting incidents are up 36.4%. Shooting victims are up 54.5%. She says that this is the first quarter numbers, right? So then, okay, we're not talking about the 28-day, right? Okay, let's go year to date, which would be essentially the first quarter about, right? Bronx murders up 16.7%. This is year to date, right? So as of now, as of today. Rape is up 16.1%. Shooting incidents are up 13.3%. Shooting victims are up 22%. So the crime that she's celebrating, and she's telling you that you should celebrate, and the achievements that she's talking about in crime, and we played you 2 weeks ago where she berated the public safety chair in city council because he just merely pointed out that violent crime was up in the Bronx, and she went on a tangent. I'm like, what are you actually celebrating? You're celebrating the fact that the crime numbers that are easily manipulated and easily misrepresented and historically misrepresented and have, by your own admissions, been misrepresented the last 95 months in a row, because that's the only data that was released. So for the last 95 months in a row, every month after you celebrate your crime data, you do one of these things. Crime is actually much different because she's celebrating unaudited, unvetted, highly misrepresented, and historically misrepresented crime numbers. It's like, I'm like, why? I basically stopped listening to the press conference after this. Once she went on the Bronx, I was like, I'm done. I was like, because none of what she just said is accurate.
Yeah. So just to bring you guys up to speed on what this is, especially for those of you who are civilians who haven't, maybe haven't been paying attention or don't live in New York. Okay, the incident is a shooting that happened in the Williamsburg part of Brooklyn, where 2 perps on a scooter. Apparently, the word is that they were trying to shoot the baby's father, right, who might be in a rival gang. But I believe they shot at it might have been a bodega, or he might have been in front of bodega. But the baby, a 7-month old baby, was in a stroller, and she was struck along with what was it? Her brother was shot also, but the baby passed away, unfortunately. So keep in mind now that that area itself, there's been something clearly going on in that area, because there's been back and forth shootings actually going on for months now, you know. But specifically this month, 2 weeks ago, there was another shooting a couple blocks north in Williamsburg, where a guy who actually looks like the scooter driver, by the way, fired at another rival and shot him in the stomach, and you know, he was taken to the hospital. He lived, but there's been some back and forth in that area. You know, the Williamsburg, which is the 9-0 precinct, and I heard Tish mention that, or rather LaPetrie, that it might be beef between rival gangs in the area. So basically, this has been going on for a while. And I said online, I wonder just how much the area was, how much attention the area actually got, and how much manpower the area actually got. Because as we talked about before, the NYPD short of cops, okay? And how we've talked about before, how that kind of snowballs into other problems on the job right now. So, yeah. Again, this has been an ongoing issue in that area, and I at least hope now that maybe it's gonna actually get the attention that it deserves, you know. And maybe if that precinct is short, maybe they'll get extra manpower.
Yeah. And before we go any further, this episode is brought to you by the Key Promotional Schools, the NYPD's premier promotional school. So they're offering this class for $849 for the February 2027 sergeant's exam. This is the last day of our code. We have a code, Finest Unfiltered 699. If you enter that code at checkout today, you will get the course for $150 off. So if you know anyone that's on the job that's going to study for sergeant, have them go over to the Keys website. It's in the links of this episode, wherever you're watching or listening to it, and make sure they enter code Finest Unfiltered 699. It's got to be done by the end of today or it's over. Don't cry. Don't text us. I'm not even going to respond to it. If you don't do it today and you decide later, you know what, I want to study and I want to be a sergeant, you're going to pay $150 for it. Take your career into your own hands. Don't leave it up to these people. If you didn't get on the job by nepotism and cronyism, it's highly unlikely you're going to benefit from nepotism and cronyism. So what you need to do is study, take these civil service exams, and move up the ranks, especially you young guys, because most of you don't have the ITHP, you don't have the 50%. All of your overtime is impensionable. You need the higher salary, so you need to get the captain. So study. Check it out. Finest Unfiltered 699.
Yeah, absolutely. If you haven't jumped in yet, you got to jump in now. Again, I say it often. Get promoted, but if you don't want to get promoted, still take the classes. Put yourself in a position that you still have the option. Take the test. If you decide that it's not for you, maybe you have a side business, you don't want to get promoted, or you're a detective and you're happy where you are, but give yourself that opportunity. Take the exam. And if you pass and you decide, you know what, I just don't want to get promoted, it just doesn't work for you, you've only made your job that much better and made yourself more knowledgeable. You know, I used to teach my cops too, when it comes to the patrol guide. There's an aspect, we're working the streets, you have to know the street, but you have to know the patrol guide also, right? If you go to a CCRB interview, a GO15, which is General Order 15, is being recorded, or you go to Internal Affairs, you have to know the patrol guide. You have to, I would always prepare myself if I had a GO15, let's say with Internal Affairs, or about a use of force case, maybe an arrest we had, or a CCRB. I would always put myself and say, okay, what situation I had an arrest with an emotionally disturbed perpetrator, or I had an arrest with a violent perpetrator. And I would say, okay, what procedure do I need to know for this GO15? Oh, I need to know 207. I need to know arrest procedures. Oh, it's a emotionally disturbed person. Now I have to know the emotionally disturbed situation, right? Now I have to know if it's a summons situation. I have to know the summons procedure. So it's very important to actually know the patrol guide. It's part of your job. So whether you get promoted or not, jump in those classes. The key is definitely the premier course. We had, if you haven't watched, on Wednesday, we had retired Captain John Monahan here. I thought he was absolutely full of charisma, awesome guy. The whole team, George Misford, great guy. Ralph Sanlentro, just great team. Get in. $150 discount. It's not cost. This is investment. This is for your future. If you could spend, if I told you right now, spend $1,000 and you can have a pension forever and get $1,000 more a month, why wouldn't you do it? So jump in right now. Put it on your credit card if you don't have the money. It's an investment worth it. So let's jump into this conversation. Again, Frederick Douglass has a famous quote, and he said, it's easier to build bigger, strong children than it is to repair broken men. And that I agree. We have to build strong children. But how do we build strong children in a society right now where crime is out of control? We have broken men because we have a broken system that allows men to run around like children, that doesn't hold them accountable. Let's talk about city council. We have the city council that is fighting hard to push against the gang database. And we've showed you, and we stomped our feet telling you how the gang database is an invaluable tool for the police department to monitor gang activity, to monitor gang members. And we've heard how it's disproportionate to black people. Absolutely ridiculous. And now we have a 7-month-old baby who lost their life. And great point, John. She left out the fact that the two-year-old brother was shot also. Absolutely insane. It's tragic, and how they glazed over that and still had a press conference. How do you have in the same sentence that a 7-month-old baby lost it? We lost a life, a gem, a baby. To me, a baby is a jewel bar. When a baby is shot and killed, that's a jewel borrowed and returned back to the earth. It's absolutely sad. It's disgusting. So in the same sentence, we talk about a 7-month-old baby shot and killed, and then we talk about how great crime is. That's disgusting. And the elite say, oh, he's doing so great. And I've met so many people that are afraid to actually be critical of Jessica Tisch, no matter what. Oh, she's doing a great job. If it wasn't Jessica Tisch, if she wasn't part of the Tisch family, and it was just an average civilian in that position, would people be saying the same thing? Absolutely not. This is disgusting that we had that in the same sentence. That is absolutely just pitiful to watch that press conference. It really is disgusting.
Oh, unmute, John.
Yep, you pulled them all in, brother.
So main topic for today is we just had is going to be the migrant contract corruption. We opened up with the Diller verdict because there was a lot that needed to be said, and I honestly didn't want to tweet about it, and I didn't want to put out a short video. I really wanted to get into it, so we opened up with that today. But yeah, obviously crime's not down in New York City. That the police commissioner, the billionaire, has no clothes. She has no empathy either. And either does the mayor's her puppet. He's straight out of Central Casting. And, LaPetrie's her water boy, as told. And no one's saying anything. The media is also holding the water for her. There's no real criticism of the NYPD. And again, that is your peers, though, that found that awful decision. And that's, we got no one to blame but ourselves. That's my total opinion on it. So, same time, remember that she was the police commissioner for New York City Mayor Eric Adams, his 4th police commissioner, which was the only real history that was made as it relates to crime in New York City, is the amount of corruption scandals that have came out of that administration. And the fact that there was a mayor in only 4 years term had 4 different police commissioners, the 4th one being a billionaire heiress. So during the last 3 years, we've been saying how hundreds of millions of dollars and billions of dollars are being fraudulently spent and given out to friends and family of the Adams administration, right? What did we say for months? We talked about the crumbs administration. Why do we always say crumbs? Why do I talk about crumbs in New York City when I quote things? Because there was a lawsuit against former mayoral advisor and former NYPD inspector Timothy Pearson, who was in a unit and overseeing a unit that was in charge of overseeing these contracts that the city gets. And he, in the lawsuit, in the notes, NYPD chief and NYPD captain, 2 lieutenants, and an NYPD sergeant said that Timothy Pearson stated, everybody's eating off these migrant contracts. Where's my crumbs? Right? So the corruption, the payouts that have happened are ginormous. You know, I laugh when people looking at this kid, Nick Shirley, and he's doing Minnesota, and he's talking about all of this money that's going out from taxpayers that's being misused. And I'm like, the money they're talking about is probably like a week in New York City. You know, if you guys watched the testimonial hearing in front of Congress where all of the disgusting Republicans faked that they were going to hold people accountable for all of this misuse of taxpayers' funds, and you listen to everyone testify, the thing that I found so enraging to me is Eric Adams sat up there and he dumbed the number down. He said, well, New York City spent $9 billion on these migrants. And then when you listen to them just like basically brush over it, blame Joe Biden for his incompetence. And then they go over to Brandon Johnson, who didn't even spend a tenth of what was spent in New York City. Or you go over to any of these other woke mayors, all who push sanctuary city policy, just like Eric Adams did. They went harder on them than they went on him. And I'm like, oh, I wonder how many Republicans benefited from these migrant contracts, because it must be a lot. There must have been a lot of Republicans elected and donors that benefited from these migrant contracts in New York, because New York has spent 20 times more than every sanctuary city and state. They have spent double. If you take every sanctuary city and state combined, and you even throw New York State's numbers in there, and most of New York State's money went to New York City. If you throw them in that and you compare that to just New York City spent double than all of them. And you're like, well, why'd that happen? How'd that happen? You know, where's the oversight? Where's Letitia James? Where's the DOJ? Where's the federal government? And now what do we see? We see a recently retired NYPD sergeant getting indicted. A city council member's sister was also indicted. 3 others were indicted. And possibly a seated city council person may be indicted, as she is also under investigation. For what? For bribes related to migrant contracts. There's also numerous allegations that these migrant contracts were also being sold. When you give out a contract in New York City, it has to go through a bidding process. These didn't. None of these migrant contracts had to go through a bidding process because they declared it an emergency. Same like they did with COVID. It's an emergency. We don't have time to have these contracts properly vetted. So you had upwards of $15 billion of taxpayer funds getting shipped out to all of these contracts, and no one vetted them. There was no oversight. It was just, oh, here. Oh, Marlon, here you go. Here. Don't worry about it. Here's your contract. Oh, give us what you need. Oh, and Marlon, what'd you do? What'd you give us that you're submitting bills and we're paying hundreds of millions of dollars a month out in bills. What'd you do to earn the money that we're paying you? Oh, no, it's an emergency. I can't tell you. Okay, no problem. Yeah, well, just make sure you submit your bill next month. And we just kept paying out, and we're still doing it today. And so everyone's like, this is the tip of the iceberg. No. This isn't the tip of the iceberg. This is just more of the same corruption that we've been telling you about for 3 years, that the DOJ under Donald Trump and under Joe Biden failed to hold accountable. We called it the Eric Adams crime family and the Crumbs team for a reason. And you don't think there's going to be a consequence to $15 billion getting sent out? It didn't even help the illegals. You just got brought third world crime to your city, to our country. Didn't even help them. This was the real scam. This was the real scam.
When we talk about third world crime, these incidents involving scooters, that is some third world stuff. Okay, right? And we haven't seen, up until recently, this wasn't really a thing in New York City, but apparently now it is. And you know what's worse than in the third world? At least there's rules in the third world. Okay, over here, these guys will spray up an entire crowded sidewalk. Okay, in a third world country, they're not going to spray up the sidewalk in order to get one guy. Okay, so at least in the third world, there are rules. Okay, but as John says, this probe, first of all, there's already been indictments, and one of those indictments includes a former sergeant on the job by the name of Eduardo Saint Fort. Okay, and yes, he is connected to Eric Adams, by the way. Okay, but also, as John said, there's an ongoing probe right now, which is looking at multiple politicians or people connected to politicians. Okay, for instance, one of the sisters, it's two sisters. They are the Lewis sisters. Okay, there's Council Member Farrah Lewis and her sister Debbie Lewis, and Debbie Lewis is an aide to Hochul, right? But in addition to that, they're also looking at Edu Hermelin, the husband of State Assembly member Rodney Hermelin. I'm pretty sure I butchered that name, but yeah, it's a very big club here, okay? And that Crumbs is, Crumbs might end up being like it might end up being a whole complete volume of books at this point, okay? Because if you pull on these threads, I'm pretty sure you're gonna rope in the entire Democrat establishment of New York State, not just the city. Okay, they're all involved in it because there's so much contracts involving community organizations and NGOs when it comes to the Democrats and the progressives, and everybody that's connected to the progressive industrial complex is eating off of that system. What's one thing that we've seen in common with Eric Adams' cronies, right? Every one of them. Well, for some reason, they all seem to be involved in community groups and NGOs with the city. Okay, they're all tied to it. We saw Banks, the Banks brothers. We see Tim Pearson. Who else? We saw even Chief Faison. Sorry, Chief. Chief was. Now, Chief is not tied to any specific wrongdoings with that, but he also created an organization that was working with the city. I think all these NGOs tied to the city and tied to city contract money needs to be heavily scrutinized. Okay, from what we've seen after the last couple of years, that somebody needs to take somebody needs to really go through all those contracts, because I think we're just at the tip of a potentially massive iceberg. Okay, and I think John talked about that kid Nick Shirley. You notice how all of them they're focusing in on smaller cities, and nobody wants to touch New York City. Okay, even though we know in New York City, there's billions of dollars going to these NGOs and community organizations. Okay, ain't that funny?
Well, for one, I can tell you, we foreshadowed this. I mean, we've been speaking about this for almost 4 years now, since we started the inception of this podcast, and now on a complete platform. I remember when John and I started podcasting together, we were stomping our feet about this. And one thing that was prevalent to me is that when there are private contracts for a city government, there's usually bidding involved, right? And there was no bidding involved in many of these private contracts. A lot of the city officials that we were referring to, that we thought it looks like there's potential corruption, were just getting contracts it's so fast from these private companies for different vendors, for hotels when it comes to migrant shelters, for food services, things like that. And what I didn't see was bidding. I didn't see different bidding by private companies of who's going to get that contract. We just saw city officials just get these contracts right away. And it was no emergency that usually when companies bid for the private contract, and then they make a decision who's going to get that contract, there's time on your side. But if there's an emergency, then you don't have to bid for it, right? You just grab someone. But there was no emergency. What was the emergency here? And ultimately, I think it's just completely evil because people were feeding and eating off this, right? To get more migrants in here. And most of these migrants were military-age males illegally here in this country with bad intentions. And a lot of them were from, we spoke about this, Tren de Aragua, which is an $8 million operation that stems from 8 different countries in South America that are here now in New York City and throughout this entire country in blue cities. Why? Because people benefit off these migrant contracts. And that's exactly what Marlon said. You're getting third world crime in a first world nation. And that's the difference, though, in a third world nation, because I travel throughout this entire world, is there is fear. It's different. In many third world countries, the government is much more of a tyranny. And people fear those governments. Why? Because in places like Brazil, no one really goes to jail. But I tell you what, if you do an incident and you take people's lives, the police will deal with you in a much different facet. So people are scared that you'll never make it to the jail. You know, in many of these third world countries, they'll be dealt with in the street justice by the police. I'm not saying that's something that we do here, but there's a fear there. And yet they carry out these crimes in New York City and other cities throughout this country with no fear, because there's no one's being held accountable. That's not the type of action that we hold. It's a first world nation. That's why it's important our politicians and legislators actually hold people accountable. But our system is broken. We have illegal military-age males in this country with nefarious intentions, and they walk on the streets unchallenged, not confronted, and the same thing goes in our court system. Once they go through the court system, they're unchallenged and not confronted, and they see the full circle of free reign, and it's absolutely disgusting. And it's like I always say, it's like the drunk driver, right? In most cases, a drunk driver doesn't meet their demise, right? They're kind of relaxed. It's the same thing for these illegal military-age males that are part of gangs. When they're shooting each other, most of the time they're fine. It's a 7-month-old baby that ends up taking the bullet. Sad, absolutely sad. The blood is on the hands of these absolutely disgusting the corruption that we've seen in New York City. Mayor Eric Adams, his cronies. In my opinion, a lot of the blood is on their hands.
Yeah. You know that in a third world country, also you get street justice from the neighborhoods too, because a lot of those neighborhoods are run by cartels or like kind of like local mafias. So there's still rules to it. And in that case, when they kill the baby in a third world country, the neighborhood may kill you for doing something as stupid as that, or the cartel boss is gonna kill you for doing something as stupid as that, you know.
So who's this? I am Anita Williams. He says that Adams said it was 12 billion. I actually just looked it up. When he testified in front of Congress, he testified to Byron Donalds. He only said 6.9 billion. He didn't even say 12 billion. So, and again, even at that rate, it didn't matter. It was still double. It was still more than double all of the other mayors combined, even at that rate. So, you know, like everyone's like up in arms about this. And I'm like, well, who's going to be held accountable? That's what I want to know. Are you just going to use this sergeant as a lackey, and he's going to be the fall guy for everything? Maybe, you know what I mean? Possibly. And you're going to protect the political structure. Look, in my opinion, all roads lead back to Eric Adams. There is no way, even his BS indictment that he got, that Trump tore out, even that he should have went to jail for. You took money from foreign governments. You took money from foreign governments. You took bribes from foreign governments. Oh, no big deal. You know, just plane upgrades. Oh, it's a pretty big deal. It's a pretty big deal. It's a pretty big deal with national security interest. And the fact that he didn't have a security clearance for nearly his entire 4 years as a mayor, and yet, well, you know, everyone's up in arms about Mondani not having one for a few months in, and it's like, well, this is the precedent. This is the precedent. Your mayors are systemically corrupt and can't be trusted with national security. This is the precedent that we've set it. This is it. And you know, we have cops endorsing Eric Adams. You have cops taking pictures with Eric Adams.
Unions.
You know, true story. First of all, I turned my back on de Blasio twice at 2 different funerals. Secondly, he walked up to me at an event when I was with my kids, stuck his hand out. I took my kids away and I turned around and I walked away. I did not shake his hand, and the cameras were right there. Like, what, John? That was respectful. I didn't curse him out. I didn't say nothing. You know what I mean? He walked right over to me. He thought he was going to get, come over. He was going to have a little a shindig with me and my kids. Like, yeah, no, I'm good. I'm good, bro. I'm good.
Yeah,
and I
but
would
John,
do the same shit if he would have showed up at my Christmas party. And if he would have showed up at my Christmas party, I would have been like, what is he doing here? I'm leaving. I'm leaving. Bye.
But John, you don't understand, John. Eric Adams got them a contract. He got them overtime. It's okay. A couple upgrades.
Yeah, and he took the healthcare for he took the healthcare that we still haven't seen the cost of it yet. We still haven't seen the cost of it.
When was that?
He fired guys like Marlon Bethel for no reason.
Yeah.
And he forced them to put something in their body that they didn't need. And now all the shit's coming out, nobody wants to say it. Oh, I don't know. I don't know why all this stuff's happening. I don't know. I don't know why I boxed John and now all of a sudden I'm laid up like an old man with a bad heart. I don't know. It's weird. I just got myocarditis out of nowhere. I don't know why. I don't know why I just had to have open heart surgery at 42 years old when I'm in perfect tip-top shape. I eat good and I work out every day. I have no idea. Yeah, me neither. But, so look, I know a lot of guys don't like Bo Dietl. I'm not a huge fan of him. Obviously, he runs a successful New York security firm. Podcasting, commentating, I would say less than stellar. He's on 77 WABC. He's got a podcast. It's called One Tough Podcast to Listen to because it, in fact, is One Tough Podcast to listen to. But he does label out exactly what the scam is. This is the grift right here. Like, I don't care whether this is exactly the truth. And if it wasn't true, by the way, if what he was saying wasn't true, Eric Adams would 100% sue him for defamation. 100% sue him for defamation because, look, Bo's got a lot of money. You might not sue some guys for defamation because they're saying a bunch of bull crap and they don't got a pot to piss in. So it's like, what am I suing them for anyway? But Bo Dietl's got money. You sue Bo Dietl, you're going to make money. And the fact that and remember, Bo Dietl was pushing for Eric Adams to be the mayor, was happy that Eric Adams was the mayor, and from what I heard, was trying to get contracts with Eric Adams. I just think he didn't like the way, in my opinion, I don't have any evidence of this, but in my opinion, I believe that he just didn't like the way the contracts he wanted were being presented to him, and this is how they were presented to him. Hey, yeah, Bo, we'll get you your crumbs, but you got to pay the piper, Bo. You got to pay the piper. You got to give 20% back to this consultant firm. Bribes, no bid contracts, and don't forget that there was a company that was run by the deputy mayor of public safety. And, he had it on his resume when he saying that he founded it and he still worked for them when he submitted his resume for deputy mayor of public safety, Phil Banks. And they won like a $30 million security contract. And then when it came out that it was actually his company, he said, oh, no, I that was a mistake. That was on my resume by accident. And nobody even blinked an eye. Nobody even blinked an eye what was happening. And we're like, yeah, there are millions and millions of dollars being funneled out of New York City taxpayer coffers, and they're going to incompetent firms that are doing nothing, and it's all just kickbacks. It's all just Tammany Hall corruption. So here's Bo Dietl telling you exactly how the scam works. Here it is. This is the exact scam.
But what do you think about the corruption charges against them? Because they don't seem to be the kind of corruptions where you see an envelope being passed or anything like that. It seems like it's upgrades and things like that. What am I missing here?
I'm going to give you a big one.
Okay.
So this guy, I don't know who he is, but he's obviously doesn't have a good grasp on reality. He's like, it's not the kind of thing where you see envelopes. No, it is the exact kind of things where you see envelopes being passed. That is the exact thing that you're seeing. You just have eyes, but don't understand what you're seeing. You have ears, but you don't hear what you're being told. So Bo breaks it down for him.
Tip of the iceberg.
Tell me.
$6-point-something billion on the migrants. I was approached by his people to do security, to charge 3 times the going rate with a 20% back to some consultant firm. That's corruption. And
3 times the going rate. Right? So it wasn't just you're getting the contract, because that's the other thing, right? Like when you're bidding on a contract, let's say whatever it is, you're bidding on carpentry. There's a going rate for carpenters. He was being told bid 3 times the going rate for security and kick 20% back to a consulting firm. That is handing an envelope over the table, my friend.
That's only the tip of the iceberg. What he's being charged in with these Turkish airline upgrades, that's bullcrap. Did you think about every one of his lieutenants, Phil Banks, the other Banks, Pearson, the commissioner, everyone's gone. Why are they all gone? $6.8 billion in migrant stuff. Security.
It's really like 12.8 billion by the time he's out of office. And now we're closer to like 15, 16 billion, but whatever. Let's not focus on that.
Was $1.3 billion for security for 2 years.
Yeah.
Wonder why. This is so deep, this corruption, and they're missing the mark on it. That is not the corruption that I'm talking about. I'm talking about hundreds of millions of dollars. All you got to do is follow the money. Why weren't there RFPs? Why weren't these bids open for people to bid on? I'm asking you that question.
So they came to you and they said you charge 3 times more than what you would normally charge, but you had to give a kickback to some consultant.
Yes.
Who was the consultant?
The consultant was someplace at some joint in Texas, Gardner or something like that. But hold on.
Yeah.
And guess where Gardner is implicated in right now? So that's going to be another one.
I actually told the mayor about it. He goes, I don't know what you're talking about, Bo. I said, well, you're the mayor. And he hasn't talked to me since. This is 5 months ago.
Yeah.
And I'm telling you something. I'm real aggravated because I would have gotten caught up in it. And I've refused to get caught up in kickbacks. There is so much there. All you got to do, if you're a detective, is follow the money. Follow the companies that got the bids and where did the money go?
But that's not part of the investigation right now. Or
No, and I hear now what's upsetting to me, I hear he's going to get a pardon.
But that's it. He lays the scam out. He tells you the exact way that scam is, and no one's being held accountable. Now look at this sergeant that was just indicted, right? St. Ford. I forget his first name, but St. Ford. Recently retires, and he's got a security firm, but he's a UMass cop, right? So you think if he was making millions and millions of dollars that he'd be a UMass cop? I don't think so, right? So what does he look like to me? He looks like a lackey, right? They're like, oh, I know this guy. He's got a security firm. I'm going to help him out. Look, what you're going to do is I'm going to give you this contract and you're going to kick 20% back to this consultant and we're going to hook you up. And yeah, maybe he made a little bit of nice money, but I bet you he didn't even know it was illegal. I bet you if you look at it, he just got approached by his connections in politics and said, oh, do this and we'll hook you up. And if you didn't know any better and you're not up on the laws, guess what happened? You get indicted. And I bet you that's what happened. I'll bet any amount of money. Probably wasn't a great cop either. Sorry, hate to break the news to you, because if you didn't realize that you were being brought into a huge bid rigging scam and racketeering scam, you probably weren't that good of a sergeant, my friend. Sorry, you might be a nice guy, but you're probably not that good. You know, military guy, spotless career in the NYPD, not too bright, obviously, and potentially completely corrupt. I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt, and I'm going to say he's just a lackey. That's what I think. That's my opinion.
Yeah, I tend to agree with that. Again, if you pull on these threads, I'm sure it's gonna rope in a lot of big name Democrats in the city and state.
Republicans too. Republicans
yeah.
too.
Good point. Yeah.
Everybody's quiet, dude.
Yeah.
Everybody's quiet. That Gardner firm, that thing is connected to a lot of New York politicians. They're all sweating, bro. All of them.
Yeah. Good point. I remember when Trump got in, we talked about how, the only way you're going to save this country is if you get to the heart of all this corruption. Because again, that easy money that we've had for years, and this is why I talked about it earlier, the easy money we've had for decades in this country. Again, because America led the world, right? And the world needed US dollars to buy things like oil, right? But the future we're headed to is a world where you don't need the US dollar to buy oil, which creates less demand for US bonds, which makes it harder for America to, just leverage debt on everything, right? So easy money is kind of over, right? So, let's look at the how much contracts NYC spends on every year. 4.45 billion dollars, okay? And that's only
42
in
billion.
2020. What did I
42
say?
billion.
Oh yeah, 42. Yeah. And that's only in fiscal year 2025, okay? So it's a lot of money flowing there, and a lot of easy money for a lot of people who are feeding off of this system. And unfortunately, I think it's all coming to an end. And the only way for America to really go back to building stuff in this country is if we account for all the waste and fraud and things like this. Because if you can't account for this money, then how would you ever get to building infrastructure again? How are you ever going to get to building factories in America and then bringing back jobs in America? One of the problems in America, again, is that we don't build anything, right? So now that a lot of these people, instead of putting, a lot of these people are very smart because they find ways to sidestep these laws and again get their crumbs, right? Instead of them doing something productive like starting a business, right? They all want to be consultants, right? Or find some other way to get government money, okay? And that system, it only works when America has easy money and a way to leverage again the future with the global money system. And it doesn't work in a world where America has to tighten its budget and account for every dollar and in an efficient way. But this is the state of New York City right now.
I think everything in New York City is a contract. I mean, even back in the day when they started to come out with the different phones for the NYPD, right? Every week was a different phone, right? And they would all go bad. I'm like, oh, who's getting this contract, right? And that would, excuse me, honestly, just facetiously, just joking around, right? I was so busy working, doing special operations, I wasn't really delved into the politics of it until the end of my career, where I started to really see it and really understand it. But even back then, I would say, oh, who's got a private contract on it? But there are private contracts everywhere. And I just want to say, we foreshadowed this a long time ago. I think that actual clip that John just put up here, we played for you on this podcast about a year ago. John, I think it was about a year ago that we actually played that. And what I'm curious about that is I say to myself, when it comes to Bo Dietl, how much did he really know? Because I think he knew a lot more, right? And obviously something went south between him and Eric Adams, because the relationship was far closer than that before he spoke about that. But my question is this to Bo Dietl: is why did they come and approach you with that offer? Why did they feel comfortable enough to come to you with that offer anyway? That's what I'm curious about. Because you got to figure there's a big circle here, and people have to, be comfortable enough to make that approach. Why were they so comfortable to come to him with that approach? So how much did he really know? And my guess is he knew a lot more. He knew a lot more than he's leading on to. And I think a lot of other people knew a lot more. And which is, again, goes back to what we've been saying is sin of a man being complicit with silence is a problem, because everyone's feeding off this. So it's cowardice. It's also self-preserving. King Gerbo says here, it's a good point. Yeah. And that's what I've been thinking is why did they feel comfortable enough to go to Bo Dietl? Who else did they approach? Who else? So you have to ask yourself is how much these people know. And I think a lot of people know a lot more than they lead on to. Brooklyn Girl says greed is a problem. Yeah, greed is a huge problem in New York City. And John, I think you said it a long time ago that corruption is the default position for New York City. There's just so much money to be made. And it's absolutely disappointing that under Donald Trump, the Department of Justice just completely let Eric Adams walk off into total bliss, because we saw every appearance of impropriety, a total corrupted appearance of an administration for 4 years with 4 police commissioners, with just parting it up, nefarious characters that they associate with, the appearance of private contracts just being exploited. And now it's starting to come to fruition. And I think this guy, St. Fort, is just a low-hanging fruit. And I think it's kind of funny, John. I thought the same thing. Like, he seemed to have a military guy, and just because you're in the military doesn't make you intelligent. It just means you had a life of service. But I don't think he knew either. I think they found themselves. I think that's what Eric Adams did with his administration. I think they found dummies. I think he was a dummy they found. He's a low-hanging fruit. Here you go, dummy, do this. And he probably didn't even know. I think that's a good point, John. He probably had no idea. Maybe he had some inkling, but maybe he didn't realize how deep it was. But I think he's a low-hanging fruit.
Yeah, I think they all knew.
Look, I don't think knowing. I'm saying actually understanding that what he's doing is illegal and that it's corruption. Corruption is so normalized today, and it was so normalized under the Eric Adams administration that most people wouldn't even pick up on it. They wouldn't even know it. They wouldn't realize that what they were doing it doesn't look right. It has a terrible appearance to it. Look. The police commissioner's twin brother was driving around in a New York City police vehicle with a police detail, going around consulting for businesses.
It's insane, dude.
The mayor's office of the nightlife was recommending his consulting business. No one thought any of that was weird. Nobody was like, wait, why is the police commissioner's brother being driven around like he's the police commissioner? Why is he attending events? And when people go up to him and say, hi, commissioner, he doesn't correct them and say, no, I'm actually the brother. That was completely normalized. We had a chief of department who was running a brothel out of the top floor of the one police plaza. No big deal. No, it's nothing. We had people doing more overtime than you could humanly be awake for or actually do throughout the year. No big deal. Oh, you mean to tell me someone can't do 100 hours a week? That's insane. You mean to tell me that even though that person was off most of the year and took all their vacations and banged out numerous days, they were still able to make 100 hours a week every week? That is so weird. Like, I can't believe it. And you had hundreds of them doing it. And it was just an oversight. It was just bad accounting practices. Bad accounting practices. You had all of these contracts getting handed out. Look, dude, it's beneficial. It's beneficial in a corrupt society to have dumb people. We talk about the jury of your peers. St. Fort is one of your peers. Hey, St. Fort, you got a security company, right? Yeah. All right. Look, this is what you're going to do. I'm going to give you the $7 million contract, and 20% of it's going to go to this consultant firm. Okay. What else do I got to do? Nah, don't worry about it. Just submit your bills and just kick 20% up, all right? We'll get you a bigger one next time. We'll get you 2 next time. Okay, no problem. Yeah, you didn't think it was weird, St. Fort? Nah. I'm sorry. I don't think he knew, bro. I'm telling you.
But you know what, John?
He's not guilty of it.
But John, you know what's a good point? Like, I get it. Like, he didn't know, but at the same time, like, even if he didn't know, like, you would be like, wait a minute, this sounds too good to be true. Like, you kind of dive into it a little bit, right? Wouldn't you ask questions? Like, you know what I mean?
But Pat says, John, but if your lawyer says the OT was authorized, it's a non-story. So here's the thing that I will say about that, right?
He's right.
Like, I will say, like, why is Epps the only one accountable? That's my whole thing. Why was Epps and whatever the other guy, what was his name? The little chief? The guy who they threw out for stealing time, and then he came back and he signed all the Epps.
Saraceno, right?
Saraceno, there you go. So, like, why were they the only ones held accountable? Why wasn't Marjorie held accountable for that? You know what I mean? Like, that was my point. Like, I said it. If you go back to those episodes, I remember exactly what I said. I said they should all be held accountable. It wasn't just oh, you got signed off, so you're good. No. Everybody should be held accountable for what happened, including the person that was in charge of the overtime, first deputy commissioner. But, like, again, we've normalized corruption so much that is perfectly acceptable. Look, dude, we had active cops threatening the lives of our family. They were not arrested. Nothing happened to them. And the papers normalized it. The police department normalized it. The new police commissioner with so much integrity downplayed it. Nothing happened as a result of it. And it's like, could you imagine if we were just regular civilians and an active cop threatened the lives of somebody's kids? Said, we're going to kill your kids. Could you imagine the outrage all over the media? But it was okay because, we're retired cops and we run a podcast and, and everyone knows that he's really not going to do it, right? Everyone knows you guys can protect your family, so he's not really going to do it, But it's like, yeah, imagine if that was a civilian. Imagine if that was someone that wasn't willing to do anything to protect their family. Imagine that. Imagine that. I mean, and we've completely normalized. You have cops. Oh, what's the big deal? They just threaten the lives of your kid. Oh, yeah, no, that's not weird at all, right? Just for using our First Amendment? Nah, it's not corrupt. And you had the police commissioner and the mayor send their criminal buddies who they associate with daily and still associate with till today to threaten your life. No, that wasn't a big deal. That's not corrupt at all, right? Criminal associations only if you hang out with conservative people. Conservative politicians. If you hang out with actual criminals, no. You actually hang out with people that were implicated in doing hits and dealing drugs and all this other stuff. No, that's not big. No big deal. The New York Yankees.
No big deal.
The New York Yankees didn't want their players hanging out with this known criminal, associating at his events, but the police department didn't care. They didn't see it as an issue, and the mayor didn't see it as an issue. And hey, we gave the key to the city to Puff Daddy. It's all normal. Everything's normal. Hey, and you know what? We just had our mayor get bribed by a foreign country, and we don't think it's a big deal. By the way, a foreign country that we may be going to war with next in Turkey. No big deal. None at all. And it's no big deal that our mayor actually shot a movie, and when he was the borough president, with the Turkish film company where he played a politician that was being bribed by Turkish businessmen. No big deal. I think, what I think it is? I think it's just that you guys are mad and your career didn't work out the way it wanted it to. And you guys are just angry and you guys just couldn't handle having a black mayor and a black chief of department and a Hispanic police commissioner. You guys are just racist. That's what it is. And I'm just a racist too. It wasn't the fact that the NYPD is a disgusting version, probably it's more disgusting version of what it was in 1884. I'm telling you, I'm reading the Lexow investigation, and there was more integrity in a systemically corrupted police department than there was during that administration. And by the way, there's still a lot of it lingering, and there's still a lot of incompetence that's not being handled, and there's still a lot of it going down a very deep, dark road with public safety in New York City, and nobody wants to talk about it. We'll just cheer on the billionaire heiress because, hey, it'll be beneficial for us. Maybe I could be the next Bill Bratton where I could just say all these nice things with zero substance behind it and make millions of dollars to do nothing. I'll go hang out in the Hamptons, me and Kiki.
But that was what I was saying a long time ago, John. That's why I have a problem with it. And I think there's become like a level of tolerance, dude. There's like people have when it comes to Eric Adams, it's so with a lot of the cops I spoke to personally, I felt like I'm like, you guys have like a level of tolerance for corruption now. I know they're talking about these bribes, but we got a contract and we're getting overtime. And dude, it could be so much worse. We could get Zohran Mamdani. I'm like, how much worse could it get? Is it really worse right now? There can't be any level of tolerance for corruption. And because right now it's easy for Zohran Mamdani to say, hey, I was dealt with this bag of shit. And now I got to figure it out. So, thank you, Eric Adams.
Look at that. First indicted mayor in New York City history. More corruption scandals than any mayor ever. More police commissioners than any mayor ever. More deputy mayors than any mayor ever. Every single one of them walked out in scandals related to contracts. So many people indicted for contract after contract. Those button schemes, right? The panic buttons for schools. That dude gets indicted over it. But then they were pushing the panic buttons in delis. Now they're pushing the panic buttons in churches and houses of worship and synagogues. And that's all shady shit. Nobody's looking into it. And here you go. Here's seated councilwoman Farrah Lewis's sister, former aide to Governor Kathy Hochul. She's also indicted in this whole migrant corruption scam, too. She gets arrested now, too. Now, Farrah Lewis is also being investigated, seated city councilwoman. What's going to happen with all this? All this on integrity, what happens at the end of the day? Guess what? Kathy Hochul is going to be looked at as the public safety mayor. Letitia James is going to continue to be looked at as the public safety attorney general, right? And nobody cares because no one's trying to, there's no way you're not going to have further corruption if you never go back and hold accountable the people that actually did something. It's the same thing with crime. You're not stopping crime on the street when you hold the people who commit crime unaccountable. You're not stopping political corruption when the people that are involved in political corruption are held unaccountable. You're just going to get more of it. Until they, hey, look, we just got to take out of your pension fund, guys. No big deal. We're just going to take from your health savings. No big deal. Oh, yeah, no, it's good because you know what? Because the union said we're going to get 4, 4, 4, and 4. Dude, somebody sent me some ridiculous numbers the other day. They're like, yeah, I heard we're getting 4, 5, 4, 4, no givebacks. I laughed my ass off. I said, wow, that's awesome. That's awesome. There's no way that's happening.
You know what, John? Sorry to interrupt you, Mom, but I think this is a great question. I've been asking this question also. KB in New York City says, how much of this was the Freemason connection? That's a good question, man, because we often hear about the Mason connection. I wonder, because that's supposed to be like a secret squirrel society, of how much they knew. And Marlon, you made a good point. I think they all knew, right? They all knew. How could you not? And that's my point when it comes to the active chiefs in the NYPD that are silent. I'm often told that some of the chiefs are compartmentalized and they don't know what's going on. They only know their area. I don't believe that. I really don't. There's only so many chiefs at the top of the NYPD. You know what's going on. I think they all know what's going on. You might not know every particular or all the details, but you have an idea. Even when it comes to St. Fort, okay, maybe you didn't know, but something's off. If they're offering you money, people don't offer you money just out of the goodness of their heart, unless it's your own family. If people offer you money, you have to question, wait a minute, why are they giving me money here? Am I right? People don't just give you money.
Well, I mean, look, if he was a good cop, he would have been like, I don't think this is, and he would have looked into it further, Exactly. I'm telling you, they look for the dumb, bro. That's why the dumb are in charge of the NYPD. That's what it is. They put dumb people up there so they don't think about these things, and they don't even realize what they're doing is criminal.
But that's what pissed me off LePetri, because he's not dumb. So it's not only people that are dumb, but it's people that want to be there so bad that the power and the prestige and the status is far more important. Because Michael Petri's not a dumb guy, right? Let's be honest, he's not. He knows what's going on. So there's dumb idiots, yes, but then there's people like him that's more important to be in that spot. That I think is even worse, because he's not dumb, he's intelligent. To me, that's sinister.
Yeah, I think we're talking about learned helplessness again, and I brought this up a couple episodes ago. This is why nothing is happening. I think that after a while, a lot of people in the system just resign themselves to, hey, there's nothing I can do. I don't have any control over this, so what am I gonna do? But to get my crumbs too. Got to get mine too, because everybody else is getting theirs. I like to reference that MC Breed song from the early 90s. Got to get mine while you get yours, and that seems to be the mentality you're seeing in society now. It's everyone's resigned to, oh, I can't do, well, it is what it is, man. I just gotta survive in the system by getting mine while everything else is falling apart. And it's never a problem when your neighbor's house is burning, but eventually that fire is going to reach your lawn. Okay. And that's the overall problem with this mentality here. I just to go back to what you guys were saying. I think they all know what's going on. Okay. We referenced Tim Pearson's comment about getting his crumbs earlier. I think just him saying that is kind of a acknowledgement that everybody else was feeding off of this contract system and feeding off of government money. So, let me go get mine too,
And you know what's funny, Marlon? No one has ever told us, because we've been saying that. No one has ever told us that, hey, that guy never said that, right? No one's ever challenged that. I just want to say that. I think that's important to note that no one's ever challenged it. No, that guy didn't say that.
Yeah, yeah. And see, I came upon this again, the 3 symptoms of learned helplessness, okay? But look at the bottom, okay? They bring up a good point here. Even the people that are numb to all of this, right? Emotionally numb on the outside, they're actually experiencing high levels of stress on the inside. And I'm bringing that up because, you know, John referenced those guys who get at us for talking about this publicly. You know, how dare you criticize the chief? You know, how dare you point out that her career has been the product of nepotism and cronyism and you know, and powered by rocket fuel? You know, how dare you? The reason why they're doing that is because, again, they've internalized all of this themselves. And, you know, on the outside they may seem numb, but on the inside, you know, they're stressed out about all of this too. And they have it all bottled up, and the only way to you know, to get it out there is by criticizing us for pointing it all out, you know, bringing it all out to the surface. And this is also why you see guys like John Chell, or as he likes to also go by on social media, Salvatore Grecci. Okay, he's back to using the alias yesterday because I saw him jump on a back and forth I had with another cop, right? This is why, you know, we've talked about his drinking habits before. Okay, this is all why, because they know it themselves. They know something is wrong here. Okay, but I may be numb to it on the outside. Okay, but I'm feeling it deep down in my head. I'm thinking about it. Okay, you know, this is why I said, you know, I go to sleep at night. I'm fine with my choice that I made not to take the vax. Okay, because I sleep well at night knowing I made the right choice. And I wouldn't sleep well at night if I took that crap, and I would have to look at myself in the mirror every day and say, damn, you took it. Okay, you knew it was wrong, but you still went ahead and take it. And I would be in this situation too. I'd be stressed out too. I may be hitting the bottle like Chell. Okay, this is why they do that, because deep down they know it's wrong too. Okay, but they're in such a deep state of learned helplessness that, you know, they're not going to do anything, you know. And by that point too, they've already, you know, they're already invested in that corruption themselves, you know. So
yeah, look, before we get on yesterday, because I think that's important, that kid that was coming after you, John Varelli, who I know, by the way, and I like, and I think, you know, I think has a lot of intelligence, but I think is emotionally invested when it comes to talking about the issues, like 99% of the NYPD. It's like, no, I agree with you. You know, I don't like DEI and I don't like the vaccine mandates, but don't ever talk about the people that I like, because then you're the bad guy. You know, so let's definitely talk about it. But I think last thing, like this thing, this came out from Coronavirus New York, and it just shows how inept the New York City Police Department is. And like it's insane at this point. So this girl, she gets her car stolen. She goes to the cops. The cops don't run out to help her. She finds her car on her own, right? She says, look, my car's over here. I know where it is. I need you guys to help me. They're like, no, we'll just take the report for you. Look, in years past, that was a no-brainer, dude. Somebody came in, like, my car got stolen and I know where it is. Anti-crime team setting up on that car. All right, where is it? Yeah, we don't want you to go there. We're going to go over there. You know, give me the make and the model of the car, blah, blah, blah. They're going to set up on that car and wait for somebody to come back. We just, you know, we take a report. We can't help you. Nothing we could do. We don't have the manpower to go over there. And then she goes over to where her car is, and it's in a warehouse. And her car's got a plates removed from it. Brand new car that she just got. And inside of that warehouse, there's numerous other cars with no plates on it, meaning she stumbled into a whole entire ring of stolen cars that are more than likely going to go out on container ships in New York City and be brought, whatever, maybe to the Caribbean or somewhere else, you know, or they'll all be broken down for parts and sold in parts because, you know, cars, this is a newer car, and that's why I believe it would probably be sold. But like the older cars, they're more valuable apart than they are together. So we haven't seen this phenomenon. So even though you're being told auto theft is down, it's like, well, auto theft reporting is down. One, because people stop reporting a lot of the crime from autos. And the other reason is because the police department's completely inept. But she goes there, gets her own car back, and absolutely nothing happens with any of these other cars. They're just all stolen cars sitting there. Listen to what she has to say here.
Found it. So I had made a police report, but there were no help whatsoever. So I ended up realizing that my AirPods were still in my car, and it tracked to this place, Nationwide Warehouse. I came inside. This is what it looked like. My car was stuffed in the back somewhere with no plates on it. I literally had to look behind all the cars to see if I could find my car, and I found my car. Mind you guys, I got this car a week ago. This place had a whole bunch of cars with no plates on it. So I'm assuming they're used to stealing cars. This is the man that owns the place. He told me to get out when I came in, but y'all knew that wasn't happening. This is what it looks like coming into the place. Y'all, if your car is missing, check out Nationwide. Where some of you may know that my car was.
Think about that. You know what the police department's done at Nationwide Warehouse? Zero. This would have never, ever, ever happened in the past. This is an incompetent, inept New York City Police Department, and they're lying to you about the crime numbers. This is just another example of it. Embarrassment. This woman has to go out on her own, investigate on her own, get her car back on her own, because the New York City Police Department that we spend billions can't help her. Sick. Sick to me. Sick.
It's sick because you have a full stolen car operation, and there was a point in time where there would be a full blitz on figuring out what that operation is, right? With auto crime division, with anti-crime. You're absolutely right. If someone approached the intake at a precinct, especially when I was working, about a potential stolen car, they would notify us immediately. We would go down there and sit in that car and wait for someone to occupy that car to find out what's going on with it. Now, so Lily, you bring up a good point here. Lily says, John, it makes no sense if it is truly stolen. How would someone know where it is? Listen, these things do happen, but that's why it's important. Sometimes people do report their car stolen and they're lying. It's an insurance scam or they can't make the payments. Or sometimes it's legitimately true. But the bottom line is you go out there and you do the investigation. And that's why we've been telling you crime is not down because they do an amazing job. They manipulate the stats. And how they manipulate the stats? By having a mischaracterization of and misrepresentation of crime, but not actually documenting and not reporting it. And how do you not document it and how do you not report it? You ignore it. And that's how they don't document issues. And that's what's really sad about this. So, Lily, to your point, if the cops did suspect that she was lying, anytime if I suspect that someone's lying, I would say, hey, you're lying to me, because that's not what a cop does. You say, oh, no problem. Please. Okay, I'm going to fill out a report for a stolen car. And then the complainant, who would be this woman, would fill out an affidavit swearing that her car was stolen. And if in fact she's lying, she would be arrested for falsifying a report. But either way, you would do the investigation. You would go out there, sit on the car, or sit on that warehouse, call all the notify the proper units like auto crime, sit on that car, sit on the warehouse, and then you would find the occupants, make the arrest. And if she was in on it, a debrief, an interrogation would lead to that information. Or if not, you'd find out, but you would do a full-fledged investigation. So that's what's missing here. It's a misrepresentation of crime. How do they not report crime? They ignore it. And this is sad that we've gotten to this state of the NYPD. This is not the NYPD that we work for. This is a complete new version.
Yeah, that case is very curious, you know. I we need to do follow up on that and see if that goes anywhere, you know. But to answer your question, Lily, she actually tracked her earbuds, you know, because you can find my phone on iPhone or Apple products and track your whatever electronic that is, because of the low what is it called, low energy Bluetooth. So it's communicating with other Bluetooth devices, and and they're creating kind of like a network, you know, which will eventually feed back to, say, Wi-Fi and then get back to you. So that's how she was able to track her vehicle. I mean, this case sounds so absurd to me. I have to wonder if I'm missing something here, because you know, certainly if this was in the 7-7 back in the day, I mean, guys would be jumping all over this because there's you're making overtime for days here, and that would be like a great hour,
baby.
Yeah, you're gonna be on here for days,
Yeah.
You got like a month's worth of overtime potentially here, and you're gonna get an attaboy from the special ops lieutenant and the CO for that, So I have to wonder if something's missing here, this just sounds so.
Yeah, the cops are missing at Marlon. Like this is a joke. Like the police department's missing. Like I'm sorry, you would go there and you would literally monitor every vehicle at that point, and you would have unleashed an entire auto crime ring. But instead, all you got is a post bashing you on social media that's going nowhere, and you got a press conference that crime is down and auto crime is actually down. She made mention to that specifically. Grand larceny auto's down too. It's like, oh wow, that's weird.
I mean, it just sounds so absurd to me. I'm just stupefied that like the police department didn't jump on that.
Dude, I told you, my friends had videos of these kids breaking into their cars, numerous ones, and they went to the community council hearing, and the literal CO in the community affairs said, there's just so many that we can't stop because the more that come, we just can't stop them from doing it, so we don't really focus on it. I'm like, what? And this is in the 122 in Richmond Town in Staten Island. Affluent area, easy to get kids overnight. It's not high foot traffic there. And I'm like, the police department told you that? They didn't tell you that. No, the commanding officer told me that. I was like, are you kidding me? Like, this is not the same. This is not your daddy's police department, Marlon. This is not the police department you were trained into. The leadership of this department is focused on everything else but victims. We put criminals first, their feelings first. We got to make sure our cops don't punch a terrorist in the face that just try to blow us all up. We got to hold his arm back. I got to get over that barrier to stop that white cop from beating up that Muslim kid, more than anything else. Like this is that video is outrageous, dude. It's outrageous to me. Because what do you want to do? What do you want to do? What I want to do? I want to go right to that warehouse, secure the entire warehouse, get a search warrant, check all these cars where they're stolen from, call all the complainants up, and lock up the person that owns that building.
Look, there's a big flashpoint here. So Lily, if you're still here, by the way, thank you for being with us all the time. We appreciate you. Great friend to the network. She brings up a great point, right? And it does. Listen, I'm very skeptical of this stolen car ring. I'm very skeptical of this woman that reported the car stolen. But at the same token, what this does outline is the type of police work that the NYPD is doing in comparison to what we've seen before. Because what Marlon and John and what I am telling you is that what we would do in the past is immediately there would be a full blitz. There would be a full court blitz. It would be I myself, it's anti-crime teams, auto crime. We'd all be out there together working in connection and trying to figure out what type of operations here. We would be sitting on it. We would be running the place. When we say running the place, getting the information on the location. We would try to get the plates that are there. We would get all the information, try to find out who are potential victims, see if people are lying, see what's going on there. Is there an insurance scam? Are they trying to get these cars abroad on a freight being shipped? Because a lot of times cars that are stolen, they get sent on a ship, on a container, and you never see them again. And a lot of times there are people lying about the car stolen. But what we did, and that's not what's important right now. What's important is what we did in the past, is how we do police work. And they're not doing intrusive police work. And that's intrusive police work. Getting out there, setting an operation, and figuring out what's going on. Run those plates, get the information on the location, find out who's occupying the place. Did she report cars in the past stolen? Did she report stolen cars in the past? So there's a lot of information that you would gather. And the fact that the cops are just saying, hey, we'll take a report or they're not going to do anything just shows the state of the police. So yes, when people said earlier that, hey, we're filling academies and we're filling, we're getting new recruits and we're filling it with bodies. Who cares how many bodies you have? What are those bodies doing? And what are those bodies capable of? And that's what we're outlining here is the different type of police work that we did. And that was intrusive police work, getting ahead of things. And we're showing it. This is not one isolated incident. We're showing you this incident, the incident that we played in Melba, Queens, when it was just complete like anarchy and chaos and arson, and the police department charged misdemeanors. And then we showed you an incident in Staten Island where there were numerous shots in a house, and they charged reckless endangerment. So we've shown you time and time again that the evidence is there, is that crime is being ignored, and that's how they manipulate the stats. And for every time a shot is fired and we're not documenting that trigger pull, we're not getting the big picture of what's going on. And they're trying to I spoke to numerous cops, and they told me that when cars are stolen, or what do you call it, caliber converters from a car, that they just document it all on one report. If it happens on one block, or if it happens, I've heard cops tell me it happens at one location, and then if it happens to other people on that same block, they don't take a report. Say, the report was already taken for somebody. So that's how they ignore crime, and they're not documenting. That's a huge problem.
Dude, it was on Coronavirus New York's post on Instagram, and I wrote, like, aren't you embarrassed that this woman had to go investigate it herself? Just look at the comments. I think there's like 800 comments on the post that I put underneath it. And my car was stolen. I knew where it was, and I had to go get it myself because the cops wouldn't help me. I'm a retired cop. I knew where my car was after it was stolen, and the cops wouldn't help me. And this is all under the same post. It's post after post. And then you got other people saying, well, cops are dirty. That's why they're not doing anything. And cops run that building. And honestly, that's what happens. That's the perception. Now, I don't know that that's true or not true. It's very possible. Either of them could be true, that the cops either run the building or whatever, or they're just incompetent. But that's with incompetence, you're going to get more allegations of corruption. And not only that, you're going to have the community not like you further, because it's like, what good are you? I pay your salary. You make whatever money you make a year. And when I need help, you don't even help me. But then if I go 2 miles over the speed limit, you're going to lock me up. Or if I went out with my girlfriends and I had a glass of wine with dinner and I blow 0.02, you're going to lock me up and get 12 hours overtime and laugh with your buddies. Like, this is what happens, dude. Like, I'm not skeptical of it all. I totally believe that happened, because all of the stuff that I get in my social media is all stuff like this. Yeah, this happened to me. I went in to report it and they treated me like an asshole and they refused to take the report. You know, this is the shit that happened. Now, look, could she have probably done more? Could she probably have said, I'm calling 911 while I'm here, and here's my car, and, you know, what are you guys doing about this? She probably could have, but do I think that she calls 911 from there and says, I found my car, that the cops even know what to do in that situation anymore? I don't. I don't think if a patrol cop rolls up, or the SOL hears it, or the public safety team hears that call, that they're even going to rush over there to respond. And that once they respond, they actually know what they're doing. They're going to be like, all right, yeah, just take your call and I'll get the alarm off. Are they going to try to secure that building? Are they going to go further to get the search warrant? Are they going to investigate any other cause there? I don't have that faith in there, that the CO even knows what to do. I don't have that faith anymore. You know, not to knock the squads, but like, they're busy and like they look over shit all the time too. And they might know it's fucked up. Be like, well, I'm dealing with this and that and this, so I'm not going down there. You know, like, you know what I mean? Like, it is what I got 2 missions and I got a collar right now and I'm not dealing with this shit. Let them deal with it. And I get that because they're overwhelmed. But you got cops that don't even know what they're doing anymore. Like, you know what's amazing? I don't. Even if she called 911, put it this way, I don't feel like that building gets a search warrant and all those calls get secured anyway. I just don't.
You know what's amazing?
And then lock up the dude and then try to interrogate him and try to find out what's going on there, who put that car there, why are these in your business? I'm gonna hold you accountable. I don't feel like they even go that far anymore. I just don't. I don't feel like that's happening anymore, dude. Those cars were getting shipped out. Whoever was owning it knew something was up and something was wrong, dude. And you know, so I honestly, I don't blame her for not calling 911. When people call 911 or they go to you for help and you don't help them, guess what? They stop calling 911.
You know what's amazing to me? I mean, there was a time though, you know, forget about even anti-crime. There was a time, if you remember, even on patrol, like we were so motivated back in the day, you wanted to get to anti-crime. That was the goal. Like even patrol guys would try to not notify anti-crime and set up yourselves. And like,
yeah,
you try to make the collar, you know, because it's an oppressive collar. You wait for the occupants to get in. I remember one time, this makes me laugh though. I remember one time, I'll never forget. PSA 4 crime guys, they remember this incident. So shout out to Anselmo, Officer Anselmo, who's retired. Awesome cop, by the way. Great guy. He's actually retired, but I'll never forget it. Anselmo remembers. If you're watching this, brother, we had a car one time we sat on in the Reese houses in PSA 4. I'll never forget. We sat on this thing, John. I'm not kidding. We sat on this thing for hours. It was a stolen car. We were running through, and two guys came out. They got in the car, and of course we took them out. It was the driver and the passenger. I'll never forget. So Anselmo, if you watch this, the passenger shit his pants. I'll never forget. We're all there. We're like, what's that smell? This smell was terrible. I was standing like, oh my God. I'm like, what's going on here? I thought I stepped in shit or something, you know? And the passenger, we had them both cuffed up, you know, and usually you don't take the passenger, but we had him cuffed up, trying to figure out what's going on. Maybe the passenger has to see if he has an involvement. And he's like, dude, what does that smell? And he quietly tells us, he goes, I shit my pants. And we're like, oh shit. We uncuffed him and we let him go. Like, oh, have a good night, brother. So anyway, those are the good times. Yeah, we sat in the car for hours. So yeah, man, good times, brother. And it's a shame how it's changed, right? Rob Lucas for shitty collar, dude. Yeah. And people know what I'm talking about, man. You got a purpose shit his pants. A lot of times you let him go. So, you know, if you're out there and you commit a crime, you shit your pants, you're probably good to go. But you know what I'm saying, John? Like, we sat on that thing for hours. And it was just a different time, man. Things have changed. It's really sad that the NYPD has gotten to this point. And what's sad about it is, you know, like some of these public safety teams that are out there, these guys, a lot of them, they're like the remnants of guys that want to work. They're outliers on the job, but they're lost right now. They don't have any leadership to support them. There's guys out there that want to do the job. And so, unfortunately, it's few and far between, but they just don't have the support to do it. They can't, you know, you're an anti-crime team out there. I remember the last 2 years, I said it was really sad. It got to a point that if you called an 85, anybody who's outside the NYPD, if you call an 85, which is a transmission for you need help, there was a time you were scared to call an 85. Like, oh my God, because they were going to fuck up your perp, right? You know, like you're stuck with this bloody guy because everybody wanted to come help you. But towards the end of my career, I remember if you called an 85, if you needed help, man, it was like, is anyone actually coming? And if they do show up, are they actually going to help? And I really saw the change. And I knew that's why when it came time, I was like, I felt comfortable retiring. Like, it wasn't the same job. I wasn't going to get paid for what I was trained to do. It just changed completely. And it's just getting worse. I feel sorry for these guys out there sometimes. Some of the cops that used to work for me. And I tell them, you know, be careful out there. You don't know who you can trust and who's actually going to help you. So, you know, these guys are really they're really vulnerable and they're at a disadvantage.
And the other thing is, like, let's say you're a motivated guy, you listen to this podcast, you understand, you think about that correctly. You're like, wait, this could be a whole warehouse of stolen vehicles right here. I could uncover a whole ring right here. And then you call your sergeant and tell you what you got. And your sergeant's a moron. No, yo, we got that ADA job we're holding. You got to get out there. Or your lieutenant, or your CO, or your XO. No, we got to do checkpoints so you could go write old lady summonses because I got to go to traffic stat and I don't know how to speak and I don't know what to do. And I'm so nervous about traffic stat that you have to write all these summonses to women. Make sure you get, you know, the easy ones though, and don't get any CCRBs, you know, and you know, don't bring in any bodies either, because I need you out there doing the checkpoints more than we need the summonses more than we need the arrest this month. You know, like this is the problem, is like the focus is just off, dude. It's just off, and that's why you need strong, competent people, so that like you're like, hey, Sarge, I got a whole fucking warehouse of stolen cars here. I'm not going anywhere. Like, we're getting a search warrant. Get the squad here or get auto crime. I'm not going anywhere. Have someone else handle that. I'm down for the rest of the day. I'm going to be coming back. I'm going to have 30 at least. I have at least one vehicle that I'm going to vouch for safekeeping and release to this woman. And then I'm going to have secured, and I'm going to have fingerprinted, and I'm going to have all this other stuff. I possibly have 30 other vehicles where I'm going to have to do that too. This might actually be the rest of my next week. We might probably have to be going down to get a search warrant in a little bit. So yeah, Sarge. So you're gonna have someone else do that. Thank you. You know, maybe call the CO, because this is probably going to be a newsworthy incident. Let them know what we got here. Maybe, you know, like so. But that's the problem. So now you got a young kid that's green. He doesn't understand any of that. He doesn't understand what's going on. It's like, oh no, they just told me, yeah, just let her have the car and that's it, you know. Okay. So when you didn't investigate any further? No. And it's like, do you blame the kid with a year on that doesn't know any better, doesn't know his ass from his elbow? I was that same guy. If it would have happened to me, it would have been the same results. Thankfully I had great sergeants. I had great older cops around me to teach me the job. That's gone. That's lost. So
Dude, we were, something, brother, we were blessed, man. Think about it. When we got on the job, there was so many people to learn from. Like, even when I remember when I started the 120 precinct, John, we started in the 120. There was a lot of veteran cops there that were still very active. There were veterans that they weren't sitting back doing nothing. I remember there was a lot of veteran cops there. And the 120 precinct, if anybody knows, John, I don't know if he stuck around for Inspector Bruno, but when Bruno
he was just young.
you were still there with Bruno, right? He put everyone in special ops, right? I remember the 120 precinct had more special ops teams than some boroughs. Every team there was, because the cops were so motivated there. There was a bird team, there was like 2 probation teams, there was a couple crime teams, there was robbery teams. Everybody was like almost like there was nobody left on patrol. And man, even the patrol cops, like everybody was active, everybody wanted to work. It was, of course, there was a couple people that were lazy. They put them on the school team, but but there was a lot of cops that were super motivated, man. They were out there working. The sergeants, it was a different time. And now you look around, it's like, who's active anymore? Like, who's actually doing intrusive police work? Who's involved in this fight? And that's why I feel bad for the new guys. Even if you want to become a cop and you want to go out there, if you're part of a deity and your grandfather and your uncles are telling you, like, oh, this is what we used to do as a cop. If you're brand new right now, you got to tell your grandfather and your uncle, this is not the same job, brother. I mean, I don't even know. You don't even know what to do anymore because most of the job has less than 5 years. And the veteran cops that are out there, they have to play it safe because they want to retire. So it's not the same job. It's sad, but yeah, shout out to all those guys that were in the 120 that time. I mean, 2000. I was there from 2004 to 2009. Hell of a crew, man. Outstanding. Really like hard charges. So anybody that was in that era, shout out to you.
Yeah. I see a comment here from KB and NYC. He says, "Slam dunk, easy search warrant with auto crime detective getting a bonus." Yeah, I mean, a point I want to bring up here is that how many cops in an actual precinct know how to get a search warrant going? If you got something and you squad isn't there, the FIO isn't there. I mean, people. I think people underestimate how much how unprepared the NYPD is. In a lot of situations. Now, if you're a civilian and this happens to you, and you feel you don't have you didn't get enough the adequate service from the department, you really should go to your community council meeting, and bring up these points at the community council meeting to the CO. I told you I've been to a couple meetings on my community council, and I noticed that people really don't ask questions, of the CO. People really don't ask tough questions, and a lot of it is just like people jockeying for, because they want this position or some, the latest event that's being hosted at the precinct. And I see very little of tough questions about crime and about quality of life conditions actually being asked there. So I think if you're a civilian and you experience this, you really need to go to your community council. Put the CO on the spot. Listen, put him on the spot. This is why he gets paid the big bucks, okay? To get put on the spot and to be asked tough questions of his leadership and the status of the precinct. Okay? So, and by the way, I myself might start doing a tour of community council meetings because it's really getting to me that I think a lot of these precincts a lot of the conditions in precincts are not being really talked about. Like a couple months ago, we talked about like the manpower in precincts, like in the case of Malba, what happened in Malba, Queens, and what we've heard of happening in Howard Beach with stolen vehicles. And it's kind of getting to me that as those incidents pass the news cycle, it's not being talked about anymore, but I'm sure those problems are still existing in those communities. And unfortunately, a lot of people on the community council and in general don't understand how the police department works, and they don't know how to ask these questions in community council meetings and put people on the spot. And it's really getting to me that as the news cycle fades, we stop talking about it, but these incidents are still happening. Okay, they're still happening. And I'm really thinking I may start going there to see if, like, certainly in the case of the 9-0, I'm curious what the next community council meeting is about. I'm curious if people are going to be asking the CO questions, and if they're going to be given BS answers, because again, the civilians don't understand how the police department's working. So,
Mullen, you make a great point. I tell you what, if retired cops show up to community meetings, there will be some commanders that will be on the hot seat, and they will be very nervous about that. Because what I also thought, I thought the NCO program, which was the Neighborhood Coordination Officer program, SS Tiger says, great idea, Mullen. It really is a great idea, because retired cops, you can't pull the wool over their eyes because they've been part of the system, right? And I watched the NCO pro, the Neighborhood Coordination Officers. To me, it was like a smart strategy. It was deflection for the job to actually push a narrative, because a lot of those neighborhood coordination officers thought they were out there doing a job for the good. Didn't realize that they're actually playing politics, because they would deflect a lot of stuff. So if someone was making numerous 301 complaints, they would have the neighborhood coordination officer program police officer visit those people. I'm like, hey, instead of calling 301, just call my number, because that was the commander's directives. And also, what I watch is the neighborhood coordination officers actually speak to these people at community meetings and kind of funnel questions. Hey, if you want, the commander's only going to be here for a couple of minutes. Just ask him these things. If you have anything else, speak to me. And the cops were really doing the dirty work for these commanders so that they wouldn't be put in the hot seat. So that's a good idea. So when I show up to New York, and I've been there in a while, John and myself and Marlon, we're going to show up to a community meeting together just to put a commander in a hot seat. This is going to be fun.
Yeah. And if you're a commanding officer too, and you see a problem, you really should use the community council as a resource to kind of put pressure on the job. I mean, absolutely. You should be honest. I remember asking our precinct commander about the shortage of cops in his command, and he surprisingly told me that they lost 17 guys during the summertime. And if you tell the community council this, people will start to understand that what's happening, and they may not do anything, but at least the hope is that people are going to get outraged when they see the ramifications of it in their own neighborhood. Okay, when they see the quality of life diminishing in their neighborhood, they can get vocal about it and go to the city councilman or get online and I just think I don't see CEOs doing it, and I actually think it's a resource that they should use themselves.
I think brother Rob Lukash, love you, brother. I think he makes a great point, and he says here, it's funny, but it's true. He says, as soon as you guys do, they will require ID to prove you live in the precinct. You're absolutely right. If they have retired guys start responding to these community meetings and asking live questions that are actually applicable to the situation, I wouldn't be surprised. Like, hey, wait a minute, we got to these.
They absolutely. If they do that, bro, you got a sick lawsuit, dude.
Yep.
Oh yeah.
Yep.
You got a sick loss. They could never do that, bro. I own property in New York City. I could say without you work for me, motherfucker. I could go to any community council meeting.
It's true.
I was a former cop. I could go to any. This is a public forum. There are no exceptions. There are no disclaimers. If they do that. But look, I agree with you with the community council, but like the one thing I would say is like, look, this girl's obviously from New York City, street girl, right? Not afraid. You should be really afraid in that situation. And don't downplay, I think New Yorkers are like afraid to call 911 because they're like, there's so many emergencies going on, right? Like real actual emergencies that like we downplay a lot of things that are going on. It's like, I don't want to call 911 because I don't want to bother the cops. I'm never going to be like that again. If I'm that girl, if you're that girl and you end that, you see, my car's in there. It's stolen. It's right in there. It's bleeping on my phone. Get the cops here right now. Cops aren't helping you? Call 911 back. Yeah, I got the cops here. My car's stolen. There's probably other stolen cars in here, and these cops aren't helping me. Get internal affairs on the phone. Like, you literally have to you have to become the sergeant as like a civilian. And dude, that's happened to me so many times, like even off duty, you know. I walk out of my house one day, air conditions on, radio's playing. My wife's like, "Could you go to the store?" I'm like, "Yeah, whatever." I walk out of my house and I go to the store, and I just hear screaming across the street. And I'm like, "What the hell is that?" And I see this kid like tucked down on his bike, and his bike's like mangled. So I run across the street. I call 911. I'm like, "I think this kid got hit by a car. I'm not sure what happened." You know, I was like, "I'm not sure what happened. I think he got hit by a car." Kid was like a little autistic. So he really couldn't tell me what happened. He was just crying, but I could tell like he was off. And long story short, this kid comes back around now, and now this kid's scared and he's crying. And he comes back around the car. He's like, "I just hit him. I left because I was scared." I was like, "Bro, you're fine. You came back. Don't worry about it. What happened?" He goes, "He just bolted out. I hit him with the car." I was like, "All right, don't worry about it." I was like, "Just stay here. The cops are coming here. The ambulance is coming here." And next thing I know, like the cops are there. They're like, "What happened?" I was like, "I walked out of my house." And you know, I heard the kid screaming. So I called 911, you know, and they knew I was a cop. So they called the sergeant. So the sergeant gets there and he's like, "Did you run him over?" I'm like, did I what? I was like, "Dude, I didn't run him over." I was like, the kid was outside screaming. I walked out of my house and my car's all the way over there. This kid, whatever. I said, this kid was here. I didn't say that he left and he came back, because he came back. You know what I mean? I was like, this kid hit him. And then, you know, he said he hit him. He has his ID, whatever. He's like, "Are you sure you weren't in the car?" I was like, "Dude, do me a favor. Get the duty captain here, because you're obviously too stupid to understand what I'm telling you." He's like, no, I just want to make sure." I was like, "What do you want to make sure, dude?" I was going out to the store. I heard the kid. I wanted to help him. Like, you know, like, so like the cops aren't always smart. They got all these things in the back of their head. By the way, that kid's the CO of some command now. I won't mention, but whatever. But like, like sometimes you got to really play sergeant, even when you're not the sergeant on the scene. Like, you know what I mean? You got to like, you pay for this service. This service should work for you the same way you're going to do. Like, if Verizon was messing with your cell phone and you wanted something from Verizon, sometimes you got to treat 911 that same way. And in that scenario, that girl put her life in real serious danger, you know, because they could have easily offed her and did that. So she should have been on the phone with 911 and forced that situation to get investigated. That should have been a big what to do, to where somebody with a brains listening to the radio going, "What the hell's going on down there?" Get the boss over there and call me back and tell me what the hell's going on over there. You know, like that needs to happen, dude.
Yeah. And the thing is, like, you guys who are listening, again, you need to participate in the community council. You need to go to it, because the thing is, here's my question to you: how much fewer people would there be in Florida if, you know, situations like New York weren't deteriorating? Cities like New York, most people don't want to move. I had no intention of ever moving to Florida, you know, and I'm sure John never did either, you know. But the situations that have happened in New York are because the conditions in New York are getting worse. So people look to protect their family and you know, and you know, preserve some quality of life, you know. So if you don't want things to degrade even further, okay, then you need to put pressure on them to fix things, or to have that come to Jesus moment, okay? Because if you don't, you're gonna have to move out too eventually, you know, or you're gonna have to resign to living with a diminished quality of life, like we said. So
Yeah, you know what? I think that's a great point. You know, I there was a time in my life I never ever thought I would not live in New York. I thought I'd live and die in New York City. You know, and I loved New York. There was a time it was just, even with the rough winters, like it was just worth it to be there. But now that I travel the entire country and the state of that New York City is in, I don't want to be there. I'm so happy. I go to parts of the country where it's like, hey, there's no tolls. I don't have to worry about bike lanes. And I don't have to worry about parking. And I don't have to worry about just draconian laws. And, you know, where it makes sense. I go to so many places where it's open carry, where it's concealed carry, where people love guns, where it feels like America. There are states in this country where, like, wow. Some people ask me, like, hey, where are you right now? Like, I'm in America. That's where I'm at. because New York City is no longer America. It really doesn't feel American anymore. It's just so draconian with all the laws upon laws. And I even asked myself at this point, like, I can't get my mother to leave New York. She'll never leave. And I'm like, Mom, why do you still want to live there? Like, there's life outside New York. For some people, they just don't see it. I'm like, you're indoctrinated and you can't see life outside New York. But there's so many places right now that it's just more viable. You feel. I always thought New York City was, they say, like, a place you could feel free. But I tell you what, through traveling, I felt a lot more free in other states in this country right now, where I don't have to worry about 25 miles an hour and worry about getting a speeding ticket, a red light ticket everywhere you go, and parking. It's just become just a tough place to live. It doesn't feel free anymore. It just feels extremely restricted. But anyway, with that being said, I just want to say this is a hell of a Friday roundtable. Thank you so much to our friends and listeners that are still with us. 3 hours and almost 15 minutes into it. I think it's time to get to the coffee and donuts. If you guys have any more thoughts on it, but I just want to say thank you to everyone for staying with us, because early on we talked about how we all have to be part of this fight, and this is part of it. Speaking out, not only is it part of the fight, I think it's also healthy, right? It's healthy that we all get to speak our mind and talk about the issues. So it's definitely, there's several benefits to it.
Yeah. One, I would have never left New York ever. Like, the politics of New York City forced me financially to leave New York because I couldn't work. I couldn't eat. My kids couldn't go to school. I mean, so it's like they literally forced me and tens of thousands of people, a middle-class tax base, out of New York City. I would have never left New York City. Till today, I still love New York City. Every time I go, I'm there. I think I was there 6 times last year. I'll be there. I was only there once this year so far. I'll be there for a month in the summer, like I always am. Does it change? Yeah. I mean, last time I was there in November. When I was there in November, I had a 2-door BMW M whatever, like real nice car. Everybody I spoke to was like, "Where you parking that car?" I was like, "Why?" They're like, "They're gonna jack your car." I was like, "What do you mean?" They're like, "You're not parking that car in the driveway?" I'm like, "No." They're like, "They're gonna jack it." Everybody I ran into, every cop said that they're going to jack that car. That's a nice car. That car's getting jacked. And then I'm like, I didn't live like this when I left New York. I didn't think about things like that when I left New York. I thought about that as a kid growing up. I didn't think about that, as a cop, that my car would get stolen on the street. I didn't worry about that, like going to bed at night, that like someone's going to jack my car. And I always lived like right on a main, pretty much not a main drag, but like, it was a main passing through road. So there was a lot of traffic, like vehicular traffic and stuff. And I always had nice cars. And so I was like, wow. I was like, that's crazy. But the last thing before we do the super chats. Just that kid, Mullen, you like had made some comments about Martine Mazzarato, who's I think the commissioner of training or the chief of training at this point right now. And I don't think you said anything bad about her personally. I think you said something about her, like that she moved up like way too quick, right? Like there was like, and I was like, yeah, look, so a retired cop who fought against the vaccine mandate was lucky enough to win it. He won his Article 78, returned to work, got second grade on the Martine Matarazzo. He started attacking you about being fired, saying, this is your resume, you're a loser, she's the best, she's this, she's that. So I kind of jumped in because I know him, and I was like, dude, first of all, he didn't say anything about her personally. She may be a great mother, she may be a great woman, she may be a great boss. All of those things may be true. Don't know the woman from a hole in the wall. But one thing is not true. She did not move up through those ranks because her father wasn't a lauded after chief and because she's a woman. Those are the two main reasons. It was DEI and nepotism was the reason she got a promotion every 2 years. So you're going after Marlon, who didn't say anything personally about her. This is professional. We're talking instances. This is DEI and nepotism at its finest. She may have been a great boss there. Like, what were your thoughts on that, Marlon?
Yeah. It's exactly like you said, John. I simply pointed out because, right, the news and the NYPD's Twitter account rebroadcasted a little fluff piece about her. By the way, they love doing fluff pieces on her. They've done multiple throughout the years, okay? Anytime she gets a new promotion. So the media loves her, okay? I simply pointed out that her career, right, she's been a product of rocket fuel promotions, okay? And you can see it here yourself. Like every 2 years, she seems to get a promotion, which is, I mean, literally look at that. You know, there's some guys we've talked about before who've been waiting like, you know, close to a decade for a promotion. Okay. And here she is just walking through the door and getting
Yeah, we should
promotion.
compare this to Boudet. Show the side by side, man.
Yeah. And to Chief Baudet's credit, he's out there with SRG, and you've seen him in multiple videos, at least on the street, okay, in the thick of it. So you got to give him credit there, okay. But here she is, every 2 years, you've seen it for yourself, a promotion. Now, keep in mind, her father is Assistant Chief, now retired Assistant Chief, Alfred Matarazzo. And by all accounts, he's a legendary chief himself, okay? And so she's been the product of a great, you know, she comes from a good line, you know, she has a great name, a last name, okay? And you cannot tell me that great name hasn't propelled her to some degree in this job, including also being a woman. And we've talked about before that, you know, the 30-30 initiative, what they plan, 30-30 initiative and DEI wants to do to the job, okay, and how the media loves tokens, okay. So I didn't say she was a bad lady or anything, okay. She could be a nice lady, just like how Chief Holmes is a nice lady. But being a nice lady doesn't mean that you can't be criticized for unfair advancements, which you're seeing here, okay? And it doesn't mean that you can't be criticized for leadership, okay? And again, Chief Matarazzo herself has made poor choices, which included showing up and partying with Jimmy Rodriguez too, okay? That again, you know, Sal Greco has pointed out many times, and that's you know, that's not exactly a smart decision, okay, on her part. But that's all I did. And this guy came at me like, you know, like I have no right to criticize that, which is completely wrong, because again, I'm a civilian now, okay? The police department, I pay property taxes in the city, okay? The police department, you work for me now, okay? You work for me and the other citizens and residents of the city, okay? So I do have a right to criticize the product, okay, when the product is being diminished, and we talked about this many times, the product is being diminished by not having the quality leadership, okay? And when you're advancing people via nepotism and cronyism and advancing them by rocket fuel, you're inherently diminishing the product, okay? And I have a right to criticize that.
Look, when I was working in the Bronx, she was the CEO of the 4-4. A lot of guys liked her out there, but let's not negate the fact that she still was promoted by rocket fuel, and that her connections, we often talk about cronyism and nepotism, helped her get to that point. If anyone wants to deny the fact that she was promoted by rocket fuel because of her last name, you're absolutely you're lying to yourself. There's no doubt. I'm not saying she didn't do a good job. I heard a lot of guys like her. I heard she was doing a good job, but still, even with that, she was promoted by rocket fuel. Because if you look at her counterparts, male whites on the job did not get promoted at the same rate. Absolutely, DEI plays a role, and absolutely her last name. Someone said here, is that her maiden name? It's convenient also that she never changed her name because she is married. Why didn't she change her name? She's still part of the Matarazzo, deity. So I think that plays a big role. So there's no doubt about it. She was promoted by rocket fuel. Anyone that denies that, that's just a complete lie.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, look, you know, it is what it is. That doesn't mean she's a bad person. Doesn't mean she's a terrible cop. Doesn't mean anything about her. It's just that's what it is. You know, like, sorry. If she wasn't a woman, if we didn't have this 30 for 30 initiative, they wouldn't be putting her out there on the face of it. I'll even say that if she was just a male Matarazzo, the nepotism wouldn't ride as far as her being with the female. Like she wouldn't have got all those promotions, you know. Sorry. It's a product of DEI, and we don't need to like not tell the truth about it because somebody likes them. So I watched a guy that fought against the vaccine mandate defend it now and actually laugh at you because you were fired and say that you're a loser and you deserve to be fired. So I mean, like that was sick to me. and like that's all it takes in the New York City Police Department to get cops to defend DEI, to defend the vaccine mandate, to defend corrupt politicians. Just got to be someone they like. Well, I know that I know it was wrong that he was had a brothel in one police plaza, but I liked him. It's like, oh yeah, I know it was wrong that they were doing a shakedown extortion racket, but I liked them. It's like, oh, okay. So look, before we get to the coffee and donuts, just a reminder: this is the last day. Don't wait till 10 o'clock. Do it now before you get off this podcast. Go over to the key. Links are wherever you're watching or listening. Go down. Enter code Finest Unfiltered 699. If you want to be a sergeant in the NYPD, you're going to get $150 off the NYPD's premier promotional course. It's the course I used to get promoted. It's the course that Eric used to get promoted. It's the course that your boss and his boss and their boss's boss used to get promoted. If you want to get promoted, you're going to make an investment 2 hours a day in time, and you're also going to make a financial investment. And if you do enter code Finest Unfiltered 699, you're going to get $150 off today. If you do it late tonight or tomorrow morning, you're going to pay $150 more. If you like spending more money, you want to give George and them more money, by all means, do so. We're not getting anything for the code. They sponsored the episode. We're not getting a piece of the code. It's totally for you guys. So that's it. So go ahead, take advantage of it. You're an idiot if you don't. If you're on the sergeant's list and you're number 3,500, you're an idiot if you don't study again and go to try to pass this test. You're a moron because you're not going to be a sergeant at list number 3,500. I hate to break the news for you. The fact that they have announced this test tells you that they're going to cut the list on that test at some point. I don't know what that number is. I'm not a miracle guy. I'm not on the Rising Star promotional forum looking every day. I don't know. I don't know what it is. The guy that's in one police plaza that has the connections and personnel, even he doesn't fucking know. The police commissioner doesn't even know at this point. There's going to be another sergeant's exam, which means they're not going to make 4,000 people. Study. That's it. Finest Unfiltered, $6.99. So
yeah, I second that. I took the key. I was successful. Great guys. If you don't take it, you're not seeing the big picture on your career. Put yourself in the arena. If you don't want to get promoted, still take the classes. But if you do want to get promoted, this is the key to success. That's why the name is the key. I think it's definitely fitting. Again, watch Wednesday. John Monahan, retired NYPD captain. I think he lays it out. And he explained it well. There was something that I picked up that he said. I always thought that it was just good for 4 years. But he explained that the test is only good for 1 year. If the NYPD could get an extension, that's why they get it for 4 years. So, yes, they're having a test come out. All those people on that list are not getting promoted. The NYPD doesn't have to extend another year. So think about that. The 4 years is not guaranteed. Something I really picked up with retired Captain John Monahan. That was a great point. So let's jump into it. Let's do it.
And last thing, if you're number 3,500 on the list, you don't deserve to be a sergeant either. Go actually put the work in and get a real score to become a sergeant. So,
well, there's some people, I think they're number 4,000, right?
Yeah. I'm just saying, if you're anywhere, you're down there, you failed that test, bro. They bumped you up because of the thing. You did not do good on that test. You're not going to be a sergeant unless you put the work in and you actually take a real test and study. Don't hope for the curb. Just get the answers right. This isn't rocket science. I did it. Eric did it. George did it. Everybody did it. Put the work in.
Yeah.
So, all right, let's get to it.
Yeah, or just go be an accountant, okay? You can still get second grade as an accountant, apparently.
Or go find a Jeff Madry, drive him around, and you get promoted by rocket fuel.
Yeah, you could be the new one police plaza fluffer, and you'll be all right.
Yeah.
Don't worry. Don't worry. You might even get a security contract after. You're not going to make a lot of money, and more than likely you'll get indicted. But hey, there's nepotism has its benefits.
Who knew being a dick holder you could get promoted so far?
And then the politicians will be like, I didn't know. I had no idea. It's like, wait, you told me to do that. Well, you were a cop. You didn't know that was illegal. So, all right, let's go. Detective Nolan, $100. Wow. He says, to John, Eric, and Marlon, let me know when you wish to attend a 1-to-1 precinct meeting. I will meet you there and record it. So, look, I've never been to a 1-to-1 precinct meeting, but I do own a property there, and I won't say where, in the 1-to-1. So I would 100% be open to going to a 1-to-1 meeting if I had an issue. Am I going to go there and just rant and rave at the CEO and his staff? Absolutely not. I wouldn't. But if there was some issue that I'm concerned with, most notably that stupid garbage can that I had to buy twice that kept getting stolen. I mean, that's something that I is it a police issue? Yeah, it's a police issue, but it's also a city council issue and a mayoral issue as well. So, like I said, we don't just bring up topics and go to places to bash people for the sake of bashing. If there's an issue, we'll be there. Appreciate it.
Well, I'll say thank you for the coffee and donuts. I have no personal interest in the 1-to-1 precinct right now, but I do want to go in there just to see. I actually never went inside there. I just want to see what that spaceship looks like inside. Other than that, I have no stake in the 1-to-1.
It's not impressive.
Good.
It's a stapler.
Yeah.
It's just super high. It's just super high. That's what it looks like. It looks like a stapler. It's just a super high precinct. Like, that's it.
That's stupid.
Like when you walk in, like the ceiling is like 30 feet in the air.
Yeah.
Ridiculous.
Yeah. A lot
wasted
of
space for no reason.
Absolutely.
Wasted space for no reason. Yeah.
Yeah. I wonder who decided to pay for that design.
Yeah.
Stupid.
I wonder what those contracts look like.
Is some crumbs in there, you think?
Yeah, no. I mean, the way it's looking, it looks like there's crumbs and everything, So.
TC says Ford stapler.
Nah. Those actually went through the bids. Those went through bidding processes and all that stuff. That was before we just used emergencies for everything.
There you go. See, like I said, they bid.
So we got came to say this. Never seen you before, man. Wow, like my eyes are going, huh? Hey guys, in a Post article yesterday, I saw Adams lackey Sheriff Moran that hired 83 new deputies without doing their backgrounds. How is that possible? Welcome to the club, my friend. I saw that article. In the article, it said that, look, there's no way that dude should still be the sheriff. I mean, again, we called out his testimony. Go back a couple of years ago. We called out his testimony where then finance chair Justin Brannon was asking him about his finances, and he didn't know anything. And he said, we don't seize any money from businesses. And yet we on video, on the news, in multiple news clips and puff pieces, they showed them actually seizing money from the businesses. So I put a little video together. I called it out on social media. I pointed it out. And then he just freaked out that night, and he called DOI and miraculously found like 100 G's in cash in his office. It was weird, man. It was really weird what happened, and yet the guy's still the deputy. I mean, if I was the mayor, first thing I would have did, even if it was a pure mistake and it was just complete incompetence, you're too stupid to be in this position, so you're gone. I can't have you here. Like, this is gone. So the fact that he's even still there, if laws don't mean anything, what do you think do you think they care about the hiring practices? Do you think they care? Look, we've had allegations that people were paying for promotions with some serious evidence behind it, and people were paying for appointments to the New York City Police Department. That was happening in 1894. That's why they started the Lexow Commission. It's still happening now. I mean, is it possible it happens there? I wouldn't put it past them. And so, 2026. 2026 public safety is the same as 1894 public safety in New York City. It's corrupt, it's inept, and there's zero accountability for it.
Yeah, the circle continues, brother. So history repeats itself, and if you don't step in and stop and have preventive measures, history repeats itself.
NYPD 8311. I voted for Curtis. Did we get scammed? Greg Kelly showing a clip the other night of Curtis and Mondani at a city hall mucking it up in a love fest. Election was corrupted and a scam anyway. So look, one, I don't love that Curtis did the skit with him. It was a skit. It wasn't at City Hall. It was like it was a comedic skit for, I forget the thing that they do every year where the reporters make fun of the politicians and they go back and forth. I forget the name of the event. Did I love that he did it? No, I didn't. But that doesn't mean anything, Greg, and I speak to Greg. He's literally moving the needle, and he's attacking and blaming Curtis Sliwa for Zohran Mondani. Meanwhile, if every single Curtis Sliwa voter voted for Andrew Cuomo doesn't win. But here's the thing. Curtis Lewa voters would have never voted for Andrew Cuomo because they remember that he's a scumbag that more than likely killed somebody in their family, or released a cop killer that killed someone in their family, or their family member who's a cop was killed as a result of the policies he's put in place. So they would never vote for someone like that. They had a better chance of voting for Mondani than Cuomo. So if Cuomo would have just jumped out of the race, Curtis would have got a lot more votes, obviously, but he wouldn't have won either because there still wasn't enough votes. So Greg Kelly just needs to get over it and just accept the fact that his boss, John Katzimatidis, told him that he was going to support Cuomo, and him and what's the other bald dude's name? Sid Rosenberg. They sold their friend of a long time out to keep their job and to stay relevant in New York City. And they backed Andrew Cuomo. They are Cuomo-sexuals. That's it. Greg's a Cuomo-sexual, you know? And yeah, I've been on his show a few times since the election. We haven't talked about it, but if it ever comes up, I'll gladly talk about it. But I don't think they want to talk about it with me.
Hey, this would be the time to play that song about the Cuomo-sexuals.
Cuomo-sexual.
That shit was hilarious, man. Oh, man. Thank you for the coffee donuts, NYPD 8311. Up. Here goes Hassan, brother. Oh,
here's the original Mo. He said, Mo is a storyteller. I bet you miss me. I used promo code Mo for 50% off on the key, and it worked. That is not a real code, people. It's Finest Unfiltered, $6.99, $150 off, not 50%. Thank you, Eric. Stop falling asleep when Marlon talks. Stop bumping into your mic. It just needs a little oil, all in loving memory of Derek. Thank you, brother.
Thank you, Hassan, brother. Thank you, bro. Appreciate it.
Thank you, brother. My Visual Zone. He says community council meetings are a waste. It's the same people who show up. It's basically an arm of the command. The council presidents and board members have direct lines to the CO and back them. Waste. But again, you know, it's a waste because nobody goes. Right? Yeah. Nobody goes. And then people get tired. They're like, why am I sitting here for this love fest? You know? That's why it's a waste, you know? It's the same thing as these elections. They're a waste because nobody votes. You know? It's the same thing. Same reason why you have juries that have no idea what it is. Because you know, it's just there's a demon of apathy across this country, and the apathy stems from New York City. You know? Like,
well, that was my point.
Nothing you can do, Mo. Nothing you can do, Mo.
That was my point. These community council meetings, the neighbor coordination officers and the community affairs office is kind of like a coalition with the commanding officer to suppress these people from asking questions that the commanding officer is not going to be prepared for. So it's all like, yeah, they're questions, but I think the commanding officers are kind of prepped for it and prepared. They only bring them in for a short time. The community affairs people, like, you know, I watch the community affairs people hug these people, kiss them. They keep them on ice. So yeah, it's all bullshit.
What else we got? Cobbs 3506. Never seen you before. He says, you got to get your crumbs, yo. That's how you know how it goes. Welcome to the club. Make sure you like, subscribe. You know, subscribe to the Finest Unfiltered. Pat Donahue. This is going to be a good one. You know, Pat Donahue, legendary NYPD detective. Here he goes.
That's right.
Most hated by the DEA.
Most hated.
Well, this administration anyway.
Most hated trustee.
Ball gags, strap-ons is Eric trying to adjust the algorithm to attract a new market of listeners and sponsors. Today's show is sponsored by The Vault, available for club and retirement party.
There you go, brother.
It's a good one.
That's right. We didn't mention ball gags today. You know what, Pat? You're right. We're off our game.
We got to tone it down. We've had a lot of complaints recently about the graphic stuff that we're talking about with you know, the sexual innuendos, if you will.
Yeah, that's right. Don't watch this with your kids. Rated R.
Stephen Dess, 91.3. He says, if the police unions are not speaking up and protecting the boots on the ground PO, they should be removed during the next election. Agree, Stephen. But if you go back to when the last PBA election was, you see the whole thing is rigged. The election process, who they allow to run, and how that election's being handled. So, you know, there's a criminal enterprise running the police unions as well, right? And that's how you had a guy using union money, and he was the only one held accountable. And all of the other guys still remain in the positions of power in the union. And one guy had recently, did you see that? The one guy, he recently pleaded guilty and they gave him no jail time, but they let him continue to run the union the entire time Ed Mullins was out. And it's like, wow, that's not corrupt. And the judge is like, well, if the union still trusted you, then I guess I will, and I won't give you jail time. And I'm like, wait, this guy was working for the SBA the whole time? You know, so those elections are rigged. There needs to be a lot of transparency about those elections happen, and that should happen day one when you become a police officer in these unions. And retired guys should be able to run for office in those unions. And I would crush you, Lou, in a heartbeat. In a heartbeat, it would be done.
As I remember, John, if you remember, Lou said, "Hey, can you guys just stop talking, stop at the podcast, just go enjoy your life." Brother, we love it. It's going pretty well. So, but I just want to laugh what Rob Lucas says here real quick. I think it's hilarious. Says, these aren't podcasts anymore. They are Netflix miniseries. Great stamina. Yeah, dude. I don't know. I don't know how my bladder lasted this long today. Usually like 3 hours into it starting to go, I just hold it in. But yeah, today I'm holding strong.
That's it, baby. My visual zone says best 4-minute monologue by Marlon ever. Until people themselves fix the societal rot that stem from them, nothing will change. No laws, no politicians, not even cops. We are cooked. It's over, folks. So, we have the boomers, and you and Marlon, my visual zone, are what we call the doomers.
The what? What do you call
the doomers? The
doomers. Baby boomers and doomers. Yeah. Marlon's a bloomer. That's what Marlon is.
Marlon's a doomer, bro.
It means a black pilled, like you're really black pilled.
Yeah.
Well, the truth is, I'm not really. I'm really hopeful because the thing is, we've reached the end of the system, you know. So there's only one way up from now on. It's only back up, right? And again, hard times, strong people. Good times, weak people. We're clearly at the weak people part here, right? So if we get a little hard times, at least we'll create stronger people and a better America. So, yeah.
So we're not at the hard times yet?
No, we're not. We're getting there. When you have to pay for oil on the international market without American dollars, then you're at the hard times, okay? Because low demand for American dollars means low demand for bonds, which means you're going to have to balance that budget. No more raising the debt ceiling, no more borrowing in the future. That's what the hard part. The hard part is when you have to build factories in America again, rather than just, everybody coasting off of the stock market bubbles, So that hard part is coming.
I just hope, honestly, if you look at history, every empire has met their demise. The Spanish Empire, the Roman Empire. I just hope that it doesn't happen to us. So hopefully we get enough hard times that it turns us around before, because that's what happened with the Roman times, right? Everyone, they got comfortable and they became weak because they started to have other people fight their wars. So they can't, and things, for some reason, when they get sexualized, society gets weak, and they got really sexualized, and it's just hopefully it doesn't happen to us.
Yeah, a guy I became friendly with, he was a reporter for the Post, and then he wound up moving by me, and him and his wife, she was a Fox News reporter, and she worked for the Post at one time too. They started a paper down here. It's called the St. John Citizen. It's took off. It's like the main newspaper here. It's like the New York Post of St. John's, Florida. And they do really great work, but they wrote an article the other day. Diesel in Jacksonville is up 56% from last week. I'm like, 56% spike in the price of diesel. You think that's not going to affect your price of goods? Everything's coming to you by way of diesel, dude. I was like, holy crap, reading that. Like, that's not a good sign, bro. Benny Johnson, you might want to have to take off the golden age, because you ain't reporting on it, my friend. If anything, you're reporting on the collapse.
John, I'm in Nevada right now, and I drive a diesel truck that pulls my RV. It's $6.29 in Nevada, a gallon for diesel. I can only imagine what it is in California right now. $6.29.
But think about that, a 56% spike, bro. That's a huge spike over 2 years. We're talking about a week. What's that spike going to look like in a year, 2 years?
Dude.
Well, look at the price of beef. Beef has gone up, and the price of other goods are about to go up too, including if you order a lot from Amazon, right? Amazon is now imposing a 3.5% fuel surcharge. So stuff on Amazon are about to go up.
Hey, speaking of beef, I'm not religious. I'm Jewish, but I know for anyone who's celebrating today, Good Friday, shout out to you. No meat today. Yeah, listen, happy holidays to you guys. And, I hope everyone has a happy Easter.
It's actually supposed to fast today too, but I don't know if I'm gonna be able
I just thought no meat. You're supposed to fast too?
Well, you're not supposed to eat any meat on Fridays throughout Lent, And look, it's not a biblical thing either. It's a church thing. It's like I follow it, but it's not a biblical thing. It's a church thing. Like if you really listen to what Jesus said, he actually contradicts what the church says about all that. And the no work on Sundays and all that. He actually he actually kind of pushes back. If you look biblically, it doesn't really add up. But I think fasting's good. Like the fasting's good. And look, it's not a bad thing to cut meat out on Fridays, like not eat meat every day of the week. It's not a terrible thing,
Fish Fridays, right? Is that what they call it? Fish Fridays or something like that?
Yeah, fish or pizza, whatever. Whatever you're into. Whatever's your flavor. What do we got here? Stephen Dess. He says, when the judge pulled the jury for the verdict, one person answered no. The judge sent them back to deliberate. Excuse me. How on God's green earth is that possible? How is that possible? It's a jury of our peers. These are our peers, people. That's it.
I just remember, you made me laugh. I just remember when I used to work with guys, and when someone has a bad cough and they can't stop? I'm like, cough if you're gay, cough if you're gay. And like, keep coughing. Cough if you're gay. Anyway.
All right.
Bring back good times.
He's doing the innuendo. See, no kids on the podcast, please.
Yeah. That's okay.
Good morning, all. Pio Affronti, present for duty. Thank you for another excellent week of the best honest talk about the job I truly loved for 25 years. God bless you all. Thank you, sir. Appreciate it all. A lot of super chats today. We appreciate everybody. We had about 750 people with us all day this morning. We appreciate you guys hanging in. We went almost 4 hours. Any last words before we run out of here, gentlemen?
Hell no. Have an awesome weekend, everybody. Happy Easter, Good Friday. We'll see you Monday. Finest Unfiltered.
Yeah. Have a great weekend, guys. Start studying for the key. Remember what we say. If you're not studying, that guy who's making no collars and always going home on time is going to be your boss one day. So for you guys who are working out there, take the test and start moving up the ranks and retaking the leadership of this job. And by the way, shout out to Chief Matarazzo, Alfred Matarazzo. I'm starting to learn about this guy, and he had a lot of impact on this job, especially in the 90s with street crimes and the CompSat. So shout out to him, okay? Other than that, guys, thanks for joining us. I hope you have a great weekend and you stay safe and stay alert if you're out there.
Sounds good. All right, people. Finest Unfiltered. We'll be back at you on Monday. Have a great weekend. Happy Good Friday, everybody. Finest Unfiltered, 699, baby.
That's right.
There's a handful of retired officers that don't live in the state that have a lot to say about the dream team, as I like to call it. All of a sudden, they retire and have a master plan on how to fight crime, but nothing to contribute when they were here. They want to come back and be part of the dream team. What can I say?